Welcome, my dear friends, to another journey into the eerie and the unknown. Tonight, we wandered down the quiet hallways of Pennsylvania's schools, not as students or teachers, but as seekers of the strange. Beneath the ordinary rhythm of chalk on blackboards and footsteps in empty corridors lies something much darker. These schools are not only places of learning but also of lingering shadows, restless spirits, and ghost stories that refuse to die. So, dim your lights, settle in, and let's explore the 25 most haunted schools in Pennsylvania, each with its own chilling tale. Eastern University, in St. David's, Pennsylvania, is known for its quiet beauty, sprawling grounds, and historic charm. Students fill the classrooms with chatter and life during the day. But when night falls and the campus grows silent, a very different kind of presence seems to emerge. At the center of these chilling accounts stands the university's library, a place meant for study and reflection, yet one that has gathered a reputation for being haunted. The library, with its tall shelves and echoing corridors, feels imposing even in daylight. As the sun dips below the horizon, the fluorescent lights hum softly, casting long shadows between the aisles of books. Many students who have stayed late to cram for exams or finish papers speak of unsettling experiences, an eerie weight in the air, as though the silence itself was alive and watching. It is here that ghostly stories have grown, passed from class to class, always circling back to the same mysterious presence. Books tumbling from shelves are among the most common events. Students claim to see entire volumes fall, as if pulled by unseen hands. Some explain it away as old bindings giving out, or perhaps vibrations from footsteps across the old floors. Yet the more superstitious point to the strangeness of it: why the same books fall repeatedly, why they seem to land open on particular pages, and why it always happens when the library is nearly empty. Witnesses say that air grows colder just before the books tumble, as though the atmosphere itself shifts. Beyond the falling books, many speak of fleeting shadows slipping between the stacks. These figures are tall and indistinct, appearing only in peripheral vision. Turn your head too quickly and they vanish, melting into the darkness. Some students refuse to study alone in the library at night because of these shapes. They describe the sensation of being watched, followed, and brushed by cold air, as if someone had just passed behind them. Perhaps the most unsettling detail, though, is the sound of humming. Several accounts describe a woman's voice, soft and low, carrying through the aisles of the library when no one else is present. It is not the kind of tune one hums. Absent-mindedly, it resembles a lullaby, sweet but deeply sorrowful. The notes drift in and out, sometimes right behind a listener, sometimes echoing from another floor entirely. No source can ever be found. Those who have heard it insist that it feels personal, as though directed at them, wrapping around them in a strange mix of comfort and dread. The legend behind the library ghost ties these eerie happenings together. Many believe the figure is the spirit of a teacher who lived and died in the early 1900s. Historical records tell of a dedicated woman known for her gentle nature and her love of literature. She was admired by her students, who often described her as someone who carried herself with a quiet grace. But tragedy struck when she died unexpectedly on campus. The exact details vary depending on who tells the story. Some say illness, others a sudden accident, but what remains consistent is the sense that her life was cut short before she had finished her work. Over the decades, students and staff have claimed her spirit lingers in the library, the very heart of her passion. The humming lullaby is said to be hers, a tune she once sang to calm nervous students preparing for examinations. The books that fall are believed to be her way of guiding curious eyes toward particular passages, perhaps lessons she never had the chance to teach in life. The shadows glimpsed between the stacks may be nothing more than tricks of the eye, or perhaps the fleeting image of a teacher still pacing among her bookshelves, unwilling to abandon her post. Paranormal investigators who have visited the library report strange readings on their equipment, cold spots, unexplained fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, and audio recordings capturing faint humming have all been documented. In one chilling session, An investigator asked aloud who was present, and on playback, a faint female voice responded with a single word. "Teacher." The voice was soft, almost like a sigh, but it deepened the mystery surrounding the building. Students who have encountered the ghostly presence describe different reactions. Some feel comforted, as though the teacher's spirit is protective, keeping them company during lonely hours of study. Others, however, feel an overwhelming dread, as if the lullaby masks a deeper sorrow that clings to the walls. One student recalled falling asleep in the library late one night and waking to find a blanket draped across her shoulders. She had been alone when she drifted off, and no one admitted to placing it there. The legend of the teacher has become ingrained in Eastern University's folklore. Freshmen hear the stories during their first semester, often as a warning not to stay too late in the library. Upperclassmen share their personal experiences, embellishing details and passing along rumors of apparitions caught in photographs or whispers captured on cell phone recordings. Faculty, too, acknowledge the tales, some with nervous laughter, others with solemn nods that suggest they believe more than they admit. What makes the haunting so powerful is its combination of the ordinary and the otherworldly. A library should be a place of quiet study, yet here the quiet is alive with unseen energy. The teacher's presence is not one of malice, but of longing, perhaps unfinished business or a refusal to let go of a place she cherished. Her story is less about vengeance and more about devotion, a love for teaching and her students so strong that even death could not sever the connection. As the years pass, the ghost of Eastern University's library remains a constant. New generations of students arrive, unaware of the history that lingers within the walls, only to learn through whispered tales and personal encounters that the past is not so easily forgotten. The humming continues, the books fall, and the shadows linger, gentle but persistent reminders that some lessons are eternal, taught by a teacher who refuses to leave. Eastern University stands proud as a center of learning, but it also serves as a testament to the ways in which history echoes long after life ends. For those who listen carefully, in the silence of the library, the past still speaks, carried on a lullaby that drifts through the night, reminding all who hear it that some spirits remain, forever bound to the places they once loved. Westchester University, nestled in the historic town of Westchester, Pennsylvania, is a place where history and education intertwine. Its beautiful architecture, rich traditions, and lively student body make it a centerpiece of the community. Yet, beyond the academic prestige and the bustling daily routines lies a darker, quieter layer of the university's story. At the center of this unsettling reputation stands the Phillips Memorial Building, a grand structure that seems to hold more than just classrooms and memories. For decades, whispers of strange happenings have circled around this building, turning it into a focal point of paranormal intrigue. The Phillips Memorial Building, with its Gothic Revival design and imposing clock tower, stands as one of the most iconic structures on campus. Built in the early 20th century, it has witnessed generations of students pass through its doors. By day, it hosts ceremonies, lectures, and administrative offices. But when the sun dips low and the campus grows still, the building takes on an entirely different atmosphere. Its towering windows reflect the fading light, and its hallways grow heavy with silence, broken only by unexplained echoes that seem to rise from nowhere. Doors slamming on their own are among the most common reports from within Phillips Memorial. Students and staff who have lingered inside after hours describe a startling sound reverberating down empty hallways, the violent crash of a heavy wooden door slamming shut. Upon investigation, the doors remain tightly closed, with no sign of anyone else nearby. Skeptics argue that old hinges, shifting air pressure, or faulty latches may be to blame, but those who have experienced it insist there is something unnatural about the way it happens, sudden and deliberate, as though unseen hands were at work. Even more chilling are the accounts of a spectral figure seen inside the building. Many claim to have witnessed a man dressed in academic robes striding across the stage in the auditorium. His presence is so lifelike that some mistake him for a professor or guest speaker rehearsing a lecture. But when they draw closer, he fades into thin air, leaving nothing behind but an icy stillness. Others say they see him only in glimpses, passing behind the heavy curtains, standing at a podium, or pacing the rows of empty seats. No matter the form, the figure is always dressed as though he belongs to another era. His long robes reminiscent of early faculty attire. The legend suggests this ghostly figure may be a professor who taught passionately at the university in its early years. Some believe he died unexpectedly, leaving his work unfinished, and now continues to deliver lectures to an audience that no longer exists. The thought of him roaming the stage, still bound to his vocation, has become an enduring tale among the campus community. For many students, the idea of a teacher so dedicated that even death could not silence him is both haunting and strangely inspiring. Staff members who have worked late in the building recount other inexplicable events. Footsteps echo across the auditorium floor when the room is completely empty. Lights flicker without warning, plunging hallways into temporary darkness before stabilizing again. On rare occasions, faint murmurs are heard like the low hum of a crowd gathering for a lecture or ceremony, even though the room is deserted. Some describe it as a phantom audience, perhaps the lingering energy of countless commencements and assemblies that once filled the grand hall. The building's history itself may fuel these supernatural accounts. Constructed during a period of growth for the university, Phillips Memorial quickly became the symbolic heart of the institution. It hosted important events, housed passionate educators, and served as a gathering place for students. With so many powerful emotions tied to its walls, ambition, celebration, even grief, it is not hard to imagine that echoes of the past might remain imprinted in the very structure. Paranormal researchers often refer to such phenomena as residual hauntings, moments in time replaying themselves over and over, like recordings etched into stone. But others argue that the presence in Phillips Memorial is more than just a memory. Those who have felt the icy chill of the robed figure passing nearby, or who have seen him glance across the auditorium as though aware of their presence, believe he is not merely a shadow of the past. Instead, they see him as a restless spirit, bound to the stage where he once thrived, unable to move on. Students trade these ghost stories eagerly, often during late-night study sessions or campus tours for newcomers. Some say that if you sit in the auditorium alone, especially late at night, you may hear the shuffle of feet approaching the stage or the faint sound of chalk scratching on a blackboard that no longer exists. Others insist that during ceremonies, a strange heaviness can be felt in the air, as though another presence is watching from the sidelines. A few particularly brave students have attempted to spend the night in the Phillips Memorial Building, drawn by the allure of testing the legends for themselves. Most emerged shaken, speaking of unexplained noises and the overwhelming sense of being watched. One group reported seeing the figure walk onto the stage and bow his head, as though beginning a lecture, before vanishing completely. They left in a hurry, convinced they had witnessed the professor himself returning once more to his life's purpose. Over the years, the university has quietly acknowledged these stories without officially embracing them. Tours rarely mention the haunted reputation, but those who have worked on campus for decades admit in hushed tones that there is something about the Phillips Memorial Building, while skeptics dismiss the accounts as folklore or overactive imaginations. The sheer number of consistent experiences keeps the legend alive. Today, the Phillips Memorial Building remains a proud and active part of Westchester University's campus. Yet to those who know its darker side, it is also a place where the past refuses to be silenced. The slam of unseen doors, the whispers of phantom crowds, and the sight of a professor eternally pacing the stage all contribute to a legacy of mystery and unease. Whether the robed figure is a dedicated teacher, a fragment of memory, or something else entirely, one truth remains. The Phillips Memorial Building is alive with echoes. These echoes carry the weight of history, the voices of those who came before, and perhaps even the presence of one who cannot bear to leave. For every student who passes through, it serves as a reminder that some lessons are eternal, written not in books or lectures, but in the haunting silence of a hall that never truly empties. Gettysburg College, located in the town forever etched into American history by one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War, carries a reputation for being one of the most haunted schools in the country. The college, founded in 1832, already had deep roots in the area by the time the Battle of Gettysburg unfolded in July of 1863. Its most iconic building, Pennsylvania Hall, was at the heart of that battle and became a temporary hospital for hundreds of wounded soldiers. The horrific scenes that took place, their blood-soaked floors, cries of agony, and the shadow of death lingering in every corner, left behind more than just scars on the structure. They left impressions of a tragedy so great that many believe echoes of the dead still wander the campus. Pennsylvania Hall, often referred to simply as Penn Hall, serves as the centerpiece of these ghostly accounts. During the battle, it was transformed into a makeshift field hospital, housing men from both the Union and Confederate armies. The wounded were carried in by the dozens, and as the building filled beyond capacity, every hallway, stairwell, and even the lawn outside became littered with injured soldiers. Surgeons, overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties, worked tirelessly and often gruesomely, amputating limbs and performing operations without the benefit of anesthesia. For many, Penn Hall became their final resting place, as countless soldiers died within its walls. It is here that the strongest reports of hauntings occur. Students, staff, and visitors alike have described encounters that defy explanation. Some have reported walking past Penn Hall late at night and seeing uniformed soldiers standing at attention on the lawn or marching silently across the grounds. The figures often vanish upon approach, dissolving into the night air as though they were never there. Others claim to have looked up at the windows of Penn Hall, only to see shadowy forms moving back and forth, as if pacing or catching a brief glimpse of a soldier's face peering out into the darkness. Inside the building, the experiences are even more unsettling. One of the most chilling stories comes from individuals who have taken the elevator in Penn Hall. According to multiple accounts, instead of arriving at their chosen floor, the elevator sometimes opens into a horrifying scene. A phantom hospital from the 1860s. Witnesses describe seeing surgeons covered in blood, soldiers lying on the floor crying out in pain, and nurses rushing frantically from one patient to the next. The entire room is bathed in the dim light of oil lamps, thick with the stench of death and despair. Just as suddenly as it appears, the vision vanishes, and the bewildered passengers find themselves staring into an ordinary hallway once again. The Phantom Hospital is not the only sign that the battle still lingers within Penn Hall. Students who study or work late inside the building often report unexplained noises echoing through the hall's boots, thudding against wooden floors, muffled cries, or the metallic clang of surgical instruments. Doors open and close on their own, and cold spots appear in rooms where no drafts should exist. Those who have braved the basement of the building often describe a crushing sense of unease, as if unseen eyes are watching from the shadows. The haunting of Gettysburg College is not limited to Penn Hall alone. The entire campus, built on ground soaked in the blood of thousands, is alive with reports of ghostly encounters. Students walking back to their dorms late at night have claimed to see soldiers standing silently beneath trees or leaning against buildings, their uniforms tattered and faces gaunt. In many cases, the apparitions look as real as any living person, only to vanish in the blink of an eye. One frequently told story comes from the residence halls near the battlefield's edge. Students have awakened to the sound of footsteps in their rooms, only to open their eyes and see a soldier standing at the foot of their bed. These apparitions do not always seem threatening, but their presence is deeply unsettling. Some believe the spirits are lost, still searching for help, while others argue they are reenacting their final moments, trapped in a cycle of suffering. The connection between Gettysburg College and the town's battlefield is inescapable. Just steps from the campus, the rolling fields still carry the memory of July 1863, when over 50,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing in 3 days of brutal combat, with so much death and anguish concentrated in such a small area. It is little wonder that the spiritual residue of the battle would seep into the buildings that stood witness to it. Paranormal investigators often argue that the energy of such massive tragedy does not simply fade. A weight imprints itself onto the land, manifesting in sights, sounds, and sensations that future generations cannot ignore. For the students of Gettysburg College, these hauntings are more than just legends. They are part of campus life. Ghost tours and late-night storytelling sessions keep the traditions alive, with new reports surfacing every year. Freshmen often hear about the haunted elevator in Penn Hall during their first weeks, while upperclassmen swap tales of strange encounters near the library or along shadowy walkways. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the sheer number of consistent experiences ensures that the stories remain part of the college's identity. Skeptics suggest that the tales are exaggerated, fueled by the town's reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. They point out that old buildings creak, drafts cause cold spots, and the imagination can conjure shadows when fear is already present. But even the most rational explanations do little to ease the nerves of someone who has felt a hand on their shoulder when no one was there or has watched a soldier fade into nothingness before their very eyes. Gettysburg College stands as both a place of learning and a monument to the past. Its campus is steeped in history, and with that history comes the heavy weight of memory. Whether the spirits of Civil War soldiers truly walk its grounds, or whether the legends are the product of collective imagination, one cannot deny the powerful presence that hangs over the college. For many who have walked its paths, the ghosts of Gettysburg are not confined to history books. They are still very much alive in the shadows of Pennsylvania Hall. Millersville University, nestled in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, has long carried a reputation as a place where history, learning, and lingering shadows intertwine. Among the brick buildings and peaceful walkways of the campus, one residence hall in particular has drawn whispers and unease for decades. Bard Hall, an otherwise ordinary dormitory, has become the center of countless stories about paranormal encounters, strange happenings, and the spirit of a student who may never have truly left. The legend begins with tragedy. Years ago, a young woman living in Bard Hall died unexpectedly within her dorm room. Some versions of the story say she suffered a sudden illness, while others whisper that despair led her to take her own life. Whatever the truth, her passing sent ripples of sorrow through the hallways, and many believe her spirit remains tethered to the place she once called home. Those who tell her story say she was a diligent student, deeply devoted to her coursework, and that in death she lingers still, forever trying to complete what she left unfinished. The most common experiences reported in Bard Hall involve sudden and unexplained drops in temperature. Students have described walking through the hall late at night, only to be engulfed by icy air that seems to settle in concentrated pockets. These cold spots are not linked to drafts or open windows. They appear and vanish without reason, often accompanied by a feeling of being watched. Residents who have felt the chill say it is as if someone invisible is standing close by, their presence heavy and undeniable. Disembodied whispers also echo through the building, particularly in the quiet hours past midnight. Students lying awake in their rooms have reported hearing faint voices just beyond their doors, as though a conversation is taking place in the hallway. Yet when they open the door, the corridor is empty, still, and silent. Others claim to hear the whispers inside their own rooms, words too faint to make out, but carrying a distinctly human tone. These phantom voices are most often described as female, soft and low, almost as if reciting lines from a book or muttering in thought. Many believe this is the lingering voice of the young woman, forever engaged in her studies, whispering to herself as she once did in life. Apparitions are less common, but several chilling accounts describe fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure in Bard Hall. Some students have seen a girl-shaped silhouette moving down the hallway, only to vanish when followed. Others have reported waking in the night to see a faint form standing at the foot of their bed, watching silently before fading into the air. These sightings are brief, but they leave a lasting impression on those who experience them, reinforcing the idea that the lost student has never truly departed. The dormitory itself seems to carry a heavy atmosphere, especially for those who are sensitive to their surroundings. New residents often describe feeling uneasy upon moving in, as though the building holds an energy that presses in from all sides. Even skeptics admit to experiencing moments of discomfort while inside barred hall doors that creak open without a touch, lights that flicker despite working wiring, and the sensation of someone brushing past them when no one is there. The unease grows strongest in the areas tied to the original tragedy, where students claim the spirit's presence feels most concentrated. Stories passed down through the years add to the mystique of Bard Hall. One tale tells of a student who awoke in the middle of the night to the sound of papers rustling at her desk. When she turned on the light, she found her notebooks and textbooks spread open, as though someone had been studying them. Another recalls a resident who repeatedly found her desk lamp turned on after she had switched it off, always illuminating an open page of her textbook. These stories fuel the belief that the spirit lingers to finish her studies, her unfinished academic pursuits anchoring her to the world of the living. Some paranormal investigators who have visited Bard Hall claim to have captured evidence of the haunting. Recordings have picked up faint voices when no one was present, while thermal cameras show inexplicable cold spots drifting through the building. One investigator reported seeing the outline of a young woman reflected in a mirror, though no one else was in the room. Such accounts have only strengthened the legend, adding credibility to what students have whispered for generations. Despite its eerie reputation, Bard Hall remains an active part of Millersville University, with students continuing to live and learn within its walls. Many residents take pride in the building's ghostly history, swapping stories late at night and daring each other to spend time alone in the coldest corners. Others admit that while they enjoy the thrill of the legend, they would rather not encounter the spirit firsthand. Whether seen as a curiosity or a genuine haunting, the ghost of Bard Hall has become part of the campus identity. The haunting also serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of student life. College is often seen as a time of excitement, opportunity, and promise. But the story of Bard Hall's ghost reflects the reality that not every journey ends as expected. The thought of a young woman cut off from her future, still lingering in the place where she once dreamed and studied, resonates with those who walk the same halls today. For Millersville University, the legend of Bard Hall is more than just a ghost story. It is a piece of living folklore, passed down year after year. Students may debate the truth of the haunting, but they all know the tale. Whether the spirit truly exists or not, her presence is felt in the whispers that echo through the night, the cold spots that linger in unexpected places, and the weight of history that settles over Bard Hall. Those who have spent time there say the building itself seems alive, carrying the memory of the young woman who once lived within its walls. Perhaps she remains out of love for the place, or perhaps she simply cannot let go of her unfinished work. Whatever the reason, the haunting of Bard Hall ensures that Millersville University will always be more than a place of study. It will also be a place where the past and present mingle, where the living and the dead may share the same space, and where the whisper of a lost student still drifts through the halls. Shippensburg University, nestled in the Cumberland Valley of Pennsylvania, is a campus steeped in history. Its stately buildings and long-standing traditions give it an atmosphere rich with stories of the past. But for many students and staff, there is one structure that stands apart as the heart of the university's lore: Old Main. The imposing building that has stood since the 1870s is not only the administrative center, but also the focal point of one of the most enduring ghost stories on campus. Those who have spent time within its stone walls often speak of strange occurrences, unexplained noises, and an unseen presence that makes itself known in subtle yet chilling ways. The legend, most often told, revolves around a former janitor who worked in Old Main many decades ago. According to campus lore, this janitor was devoted to his job, keeping the building spotless and ensuring everything was in order. He was known for his dedication, often staying late into the night to sweep the floors and maintain the structure. But his life ended within Old Main, and some believe his spirit never moved on. Instead, he continues his rounds even in death, roaming the hallways with the same diligence he showed in life. Footsteps are the most commonly reported phenomenon. Late at night, when the building should be empty. The steady sound of boots striking the floor can be heard echoing through the corridors. Security staff making their rounds have followed the noise, only to find the hallways deserted. The steps often seem to keep a measured pace, as though someone is patrolling, checking room after room. On occasion, the footsteps climb the stairs, yet no one ever appears at the top. Students and employees alike have grown accustomed to the sound, many shrugging it off as the janitor making his rounds. Windows also play a central role in the haunting. Witnesses have described seeing windows fly open without cause, even when tightly latched. On windy nights, they open as if pushed by invisible hands. And on still evenings, they creak wide, as though someone wanted to let the air in. Staff tasked with closing up Old Main after hours sometimes find that windows they had just secured are inexplicably open again moments later. The activity is so persistent that some claim it is the janitor himself, continuing his duties by ventilating the old building, just as he did in life. Other occurrences are subtler, but no less unnerving. Office workers have reported papers being shuffled on their desks when no one is near. Chairs slightly pulled out, as if someone had just risen from them, and doors that creak open or shut without any breeze to explain it. Lights flicker in certain hallways, particularly on the upper floors, where many of the strangest stories originate. There, employees working late sometimes feel a presence behind them, an almost tangible sensation of being watched. A handful of witnesses claim to have actually seen the janitor himself. He appears as a shadowy figure in work clothes, usually glimpsed from the corner of the eye. Some describe him as tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying what looks like a set of keys or tools at his belt. His figure vanishes the moment anyone tries to approach. Others have seen his reflection in windows, standing behind them even when no one is in the room. These fleeting sightings lend weight to the belief that the janitor's ghost is more than just an old story. It is an active presence within Old Main. The building's atmosphere only adds to the sense of unease. Old Main, with its high ceilings, echoing hallways, and creaking wooden floors, feels charged with energy. At night, when the corridors are empty and the only light comes from the occasional desk lamp or security fixture, the silence seems to amplify every small sound. A distant creak becomes a footstep, a rustle of paper becomes a whisper, and the sudden slam of a window can send chills through even the most skeptical. Some students embrace the haunting as part of the university's identity. Ghost tours of the campus often highlight Old Main as a centerpiece, sharing the janitor's tale with wide-eyed newcomers. For many, it is a rite of passage to walk the hallways alone after dark, daring themselves to listen for the echoing steps or witness a window creak open of its own accord. While most come away with nothing more than goosebumps, a few insist they have heard the janitor at work, quietly moving through the shadows. Faculty members, too, have their share of stories. One professor recalled staying late to grade papers in an office, only to hear someone sweeping just outside the door. When she opened it to thank the janitor, she found the hallway empty. Yet the sound of the broom continued for several more moments before fading into silence. Another staff member swore he saw a figure at the far end of the corridor, holding a ring of keys, only for it to vanish when he called out. For those who believe, the janitor's lingering presence is not one of menace, but of devotion. Unlike stories of angry or restless spirits, the ghost of Old Main seems tied to duty rather than revenge. His presence, while unsettling, is almost protective, as though he still considers it his responsibility to care for the building. Some even find comfort in the idea, imagining that the janitor continues to watch over the campus he loved, ensuring that Old Main remains a place of order. Still, the haunting serves as a reminder of how the past clings to places steeped in history. Old Main is not just brick and stone. It is a vessel of memory. The janitor's story, whether entirely true or partly legend, reflects the devotion of those who worked and lived at Shippensburg long before the present day. Each echoing footstep and creaking window becomes a connection to that past, a sign that even in death, some bonds remain unbroken. Today, as students hurry across the campus and staff carry on their work inside Old Main, the janitor's spirit lingers, a quiet presence just out of sight. His footsteps echo in the halls, his unseen hands open the windows, and his dedication continues long after his life ended. For those who pause to listen, Old Main is never truly empty. For the janitor is still there faithfully roaming, watching, and tending to the building he never abandoned. Bloomsburg University, nestled along the scenic Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania, is widely recognized for its vibrant campus life, historic architecture, and close-knit student community. Yet beyond the everyday hustle of academics and extracurricular activities lies a side of the university that few speak of openly, a world where shadows linger long after lights are out and whispers echo through empty corridors. At the heart of these tales is Centennial Hall, one of the oldest and most storied buildings on campus, renowned not only for its classrooms and dormitories, but also for the persistent ghost stories that have surrounded it for generations. Centennial Hall's history stretches back nearly a century, built to house students and faculty. Its imposing brick facade and narrow hallways have witnessed countless comings and goings. From the excitement of the first classes to the quiet solitude of late-night study sessions. Yet its historical significance is not limited to academics. Over the decades, countless residents have reported chilling encounters, unexplainable phenomena that defy conventional explanation. For many students, Centennial Hall is not just a place to sleep or study. It is a place where the past seems to bleed into the present. The most commonly reported phenomenon is the appearance of pale figures at night. Numerous students recount waking from sleep to see a ghostly silhouette standing at the foot of their bed or just beyond their doorway. These figures are often described as semi-transparent, with indistinct features, yet their presence is undeniably human. They do not move aggressively or threaten, but they hold a gaze that feels both penetrating and sorrowful. When a light is turned on, they vanish instantly, leaving behind a sense of unease that lingers long after the encounter. Whispers are another hallmark of Centennial Hall. Residents frequently report hearing faint voices in empty hallways or low murmurs in their rooms. Sometimes the sounds resemble students talking, but when one investigates, the corridors are empty. Other times, the voices appear to speak directly to the listener, murmuring a name or softly repeating phrases that vanish before they can be comprehended. These whispers are particularly common in rooms with older architecture, the narrow dormitory spaces, the creaking stairwells, and the long hallways lined with wooden doors. The effect is disorienting and unsettling, leaving students convinced that the building itself is alive with echoes of the past. Cold spots are another eerie feature of the haunting. Students walking the halls late at night often feel sudden drops in temperature in specific areas, particularly near stairwells or at the ends of corridors. These frigid patches are often accompanied by the feeling of being watched or a brush of air against the skin, as though invisible hands are passing by. Attempts to explain the phenomenon as drafts or malfunctioning HVAC systems fail to account for the consistency and timing reported by multiple witnesses. Those who experience these cold spots often describe a sense of deep foreboding, as if something unseen is deliberately making its presence known. Some of the most unsettling accounts involve movement and sounds within students' rooms. Doors may open and close on their own, lights flicker unexpectedly, and personal items, books, pens, or papers are sometimes found in locations where they were not previously placed. Students living in Centennial Hall speak of the faint sound of footsteps pacing along empty hallways, especially during the dead hours between midnight and 3 a.m. The pattern is consistent enough that many have come to believe that someone or something is still performing the nightly routines of the past, invisible yet persistent. Centennial Hall as haunting is often attributed to the lingering presence of former students who passed away while living there. Legends suggest that some met untimely deaths, whether from illness, accident, or misfortune, and that their spirits remain tethered to the place where they once lived. Others believe the apparitions are residual echoes, moments in time replaying themselves endlessly, imprinted onto the walls and floors by intense emotional energy. Whatever the cause, the effect on those who encounter these phenomena is palpable. The building carries a weight that is more than architectural, more than historical. It carries the intangible essence of those who have come before. Faculty and long-term staff have also attested to the strange occurrences. Custodians report hearing whispers when cleaning empty halls, seeing shadows move just beyond the edges of their vision, or finding doors that were locked hours earlier mysteriously ajar. Security personnel frequently check the hallways late at night, often experiencing the very same footsteps, slamming doors, and cold spots that students describe. Even those skeptical of the supernatural are occasionally unsettled, noting that the consistency of reports over decades suggests something beyond mere coincidence. Despite, or perhaps because of its haunted reputation, Centennial Hall remains a beloved part of Bloomsburg University. Students share stories during orientation and late-night study sessions, daring one another to explore the quiet corridors after dark. Ghost tours highlight the most active areas, particularly rooms and hallways, with the strongest history of sightings. While some embrace the legend as a thrilling part of campus life, others approach it with caution, wary of encounters that may chill the spine and unsettle the mind. The haunting of Centennial Hall is more than just a curiosity. It serves as a poignant reminder of the connection between the past and present. In a place dedicated to learning and growth, it is sobering to consider that those who came before may still linger, silently observing, their presence a bridge between history and the modern campus. The pale figures, the whispers, the cold spots, they are all echoes of lives once lived, frozen in time, yet constantly replaying in the stillness of the night. For students of Bloomsburg University, Centennial Hall is both home and a portal to the past. Its hallways echo with footsteps that are not their own. Its rooms glow faintly with memories of other lives, and its corners whisper secrets that defy explanation. Those who walk its corridors learn quickly that some presences cannot be ignored, that the history of a place is not confined to books or plaques, and that even in the lively world of campus life, the shadows of the past endure. Centennial Hall remains a testament to the thin veil between the living and the dead. A building where the spirits of former students may still linger, forever bound to the walls where their lives unfolded. Lock Haven University, situated in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, is a campus known for its academic programs and welcoming community. Its historic buildings and serene surroundings create an atmosphere of quiet learning. But nestled among the dormitories and lecture halls lies a story that sends chills down the spine of anyone who hears it. For decades, students, staff, and visitors have whispered about the presence of a restless spirit, a young girl who seems forever tethered to the campus, watching from the shadows and filling the night with sorrowful echoes. The legend centers around one of the older dormitories on campus, a building that has stood for nearly a century. Its brick walls and tall windows have seen generations of students pass through, yet it is the nighttime hours that reveal a far darker side. According to countless accounts, on certain evenings, a young girl can be seen standing at the window, gazing out into the darkness. Her figure is pale, almost translucent, and she wears clothing that appears out of time, reminiscent of decades past. She does not wave or beckon, nor does she speak, but her presence is unmistakable, and her eyes seem to hold a sadness so profound that it lingers in the air long after she disappears. The dorm in question has long been unoccupied in parts, yet that does not stop sightings. Students who walk past the building at night report feeling an icy chill that suddenly wraps around them, as though the temperature drops in direct response to the spirit's awareness. Many describe the sensation as a pressure on the chest or a shiver running down the spine, sudden and unnatural. Those who experience it often pause instinctively, a deep sense of unease gripping them before they catch their first glimpse of the figure. It is a feeling that makes even the bravest hesitate, as if the girl's gaze carries weight beyond her apparent form. The sounds that accompany these appearances are just as haunting. Some students swear they have heard faint crying, soft sobs that drift on the wind and seem to come from the girl herself. The crying is never loud or insistent. It is almost a whisper, barely audible, yet unmistakable. It echoes through the still night, and those who hear it report a visceral reaction, a pang of sorrow, a tightness in the throat, a feeling that someone is profoundly sad and longing for something lost. The combination of sight and sound gives the impression that this is not merely a ghostly echo, but a conscious presence, aware of those who pass by, and perhaps even reaching out in silent grief. Stories of encounters with the girl are often passed down among students. One account tells of a late-night walker returning from the library who saw her in the upper window. Her small hands pressed lightly against the glass. As he approached, she turned slightly, and he felt a sudden cold wind sweep past him. By the time he reached the dorm entrance, she had vanished, leaving nothing behind except the lingering chill. Another tale describes a group of students daring one another to peer through the windows on a particularly quiet evening. They reported seeing her reflection in the glass, eyes fixed on them, before disappearing when a flashlight beam swept across the pane. The origins of the girl remain mysterious, though rumors abound. Some suggest she was a student who met a tragic end many years ago, perhaps succumbing to illness or an accident within the dormitory. Others believe she was a visitor or child connected to someone on campus, her presence anchored to the building by a moment of intense emotion or unfinished business. Whatever the truth, her spirit has persisted through decades, appearing to new generations of students who live and learn on the same grounds. Faculty and staff have occasionally corroborated these experiences. Custodians working late at night have described feeling a sudden chill while cleaning empty hallways and dorm rooms. Some have heard soft crying when no one else is present or glimpsed a pale figure moving silently across the floors above them. Even security personnel on routine night rounds admit that there are areas of the building where an inexplicable heaviness can be felt, as if the walls themselves carry a memory that refuses to fade. The dormitory's architecture seems to amplify the haunting. The tall windows allow anyone outside to see in when the interior is dimly lit, making the girl's figure startlingly clear against the faint glow of empty rooms. Long corridors echo footsteps and the soft murmur of air, carrying whispers in ways that seem almost deliberate. The combination of the building's history, the design of its interior, and the concentrated emotional energy left behind by past residents seems to have created the perfect environment for the girl's presence to persist. Despite tour, perhaps because of her presence, the legend of the girl in the dorm window has become a part of campus culture. Students tell the story during orientation, on campus tours, and in late-night conversations with friends. Some treat it as a spooky tale to thrill and frighten, while others report experiences that they swear are real. Ghost tours often include the dorm as a highlight, noting the areas where sightings and icy chills are most common, and cautioning visitors to respect the lingering spirit. The girl's presence also serves as a reminder of the connection between past and present, in a building filled with laughter, late-night studying, and the bustle of student life. She remains a solitary figure of loss, a symbol of the unseen stories that unfold in any historic place. Her gaze out the window is both haunting and poignant, a silent witness to the passage of time, yet tethered to a moment she cannot leave behind. For those who pass by the dormitory at Lock Haven University after dark, the legend is impossible to ignore. The icy chill in the air, the faint sounds of crying, and the fleeting glimpse of a pale girl staring out from the window all serve as evidence of a presence that defies explanation. Whether she is a ghost, a residual echo, or the product of imagination, the stories endure, carrying a sense of mystery and unease that reminds students and visitors alike that history, grief, and memory can linger long after life has ended. In Lock Haven, the girl at the window continues to watch, silently, patiently, and forever. Kutztown University, located in the heart of Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, is a campus steeped in history and tradition. Among its modern classrooms and bustling student life stands Old Main, a historic building that has witnessed generations of scholars pass through its halls. Yet, beyond its academic significance, Old Main harbors a darker, more mysterious presence. For decades, students and staff have reported encounters with a ghostly figure known simply as Mary, a spirit whose sorrowful presence lingers long after the last class has ended for the day. The story of Mary is as enigmatic as it is haunting. She is described as wearing a flowing dress, her form semi-transparent, yet unmistakably human, moving silently through the hallways of Old Main. Her footsteps, when heard, echo softly against the worn floors, often startling those who wandered the corridors late at night. Despite her ethereal appearance, she exudes a presence that is profoundly tangible. Students who have encountered her often describe a wave of emotion that seems to emanate from her very being, an overwhelming sadness that presses on the heart and leaves a lingering heaviness in the air. Mary is most frequently seen during the quiet hours after the campus has settled down, when the only sounds are the rustle of papers, the hum of distant lights, or the faint creak of floorboards. Witnesses recount passing through Old Main on late-night study sessions or returning from library trips, only to catch a glimpse of a figure gliding down a hallway. She rarely looks directly at observers, yet her presence is so intense that even peripheral sightings leave students shaken. Those who attempt to approach often find that she vanishes before they can reach her, fading into the walls or disappearing around corners. The ghostly figure of Mary is not known to interact aggressively. Unlike traditional tales of malevolent spirits, she seems more like a remnant of grief, a lingering presence anchored to Old Main by unresolved sorrow or a life cut short. Students who have encountered her often speak of feeling a deep empathy, as if they are sharing in the pain she carried while alive. Many describe cold spots in the areas where she appears, most often sudden drops in temperature that accompany her apparition, reinforcing the sense of otherworldly presence. Some of the most vivid accounts come from students who spend long hours studying in Old Main. One student reported walking down a dimly lit hallway and seeing a figure in a flowing white dress at the far end. The figure's posture was slumped, and she seemed to move with a measured, almost hesitant pace, as though burdened by an unseen weight. As the student drew closer, the figure dissolved into thin air, leaving behind only the echo of soft footsteps and an inexplicable chill. Another account describes a student leaving the building late at night and noticing Mary standing near the stairwell, her gaze directed downward. The observer felt a profound sadness, a palpable aura of longing and despair, before the figure disappeared entirely. Mary's legend has grown over the years, passed down from one generation of students to the next. Campus tours and late-night ghost stories often highlight Old Main and its spectral resident. While some students take the stories as harmless tradition, others are convinced by first-hand experiences that Mary's presence is real. Reports of flickering lights, doors opening or closing without cause, and soft, echoing footsteps contribute to the idea that she is not simply a product of imagination, but a spirit actively lingering in the building. The origins of Mary remain shrouded in mystery. Some tales suggest she was a student in the early days of Kutztown University, perhaps someone whose life ended tragically within Old Main. Others speculate she may have been connected to the building in another way, a teacher, a caretaker, or someone tied to the history and legacy of the university. Whatever the truth, her essence has persisted, becoming an enduring part of the campus folklore. She embodies the sorrow and stories of the past, a reminder that every building carries not just physical history, but emotional memory as well. Faculty and staff have also reported strange phenomena linked to Mary. Custodians working late have spoken of feeling a heavy sadness in certain hallways, or seeing a faint figure moving silently past doors. Security personnel on evening rounds have occasionally reported hearing soft, echoing footsteps in empty corridors, or glimpsing a pale figure in the shadows. Even those skeptical of the supernatural cannot entirely dismiss the consistency and detail of these experiences, many noting that the stories span decades and involve multiple witnesses. Mary's presence in Old Main serves as both a haunting and a lesson. Students who encounter her often leave with a heightened awareness of the building's history and a sense of connection to the past. The experience is unsettling, yet it fosters a unique sense of continuity, reminding the living that the lives and emotions of those who came before still leave an imprint on the spaces we inhabit. Her sorrow is not a threat, but a whisper of memory, a lingering echo of life that refuses to be forgotten. Over the years, Mary has become a symbol of Old Main's haunted legacy. Students share their encounters in dorm rooms and classrooms, some treating it as a rite of passage, others as a warning. Ghost tours routinely include her story, and late-night wanderers of the campus tread carefully through her favorite hallways, often listening for the faint sound of flowing fabric or the soft echo of her footsteps. While her true identity and the reason for her lingering remain unknown, Mary has become an integral part of the university's folklore, bridging the past with the present in a way that is both eerie and poignant. In Kutztown University's Old Main, Mary's presence is a constant reminder that history is never truly gone. Her shadow drifts silently along hallways, her footsteps echo in empty rooms, and her sadness hangs in the air like a tangible weight. Students who pass through these corridors late at night may feel it a chill, a whisper, a fleeting glimpse of a flowing dress, and understand that Mary is still walking among them, forever tethered to the building she once knew haunting. Old Main, with the quiet persistence of memory and sorrow. Wilson College, nestled in the rolling hills of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, is a campus steeped in history and tradition. Established as a women's college, it has long been celebrated for its academic programs, tight-knit community, and beautiful, historic buildings. Yet, behind the stately facades and manicured grounds lies a legacy of stories far darker than textbooks or lecture stories, of lingering spirits, echoes of the past, and ghostly figures who refuse to leave. Among these tales, one of the most enduring is that of the nurse who once worked in the college infirmary. A woman whose compassion for the sick has transcended death. The infirmary itself is an old building, its brick walls and tall windows having witnessed generations of students pass through. In life, the nurse was known for her tireless dedication. She cared for countless young women, tending to fevers, injuries, and the emotional toll of college life. She was deeply loved by students and respected by staff, a quiet presence who provided comfort during moments of pain and fear. When she passed away decades ago, her absence left a void, yet many believe that her spirit never truly departed. Reports of her presence began soon after her death. Students staying late in the infirmary, whether to study, volunteer, or assist with medical needs, began to notice odd occurrences. The first was subtle. The faint sound of footsteps pacing the hallway, soft whispers of reassurance, and the quiet rustle of curtains or blankets. Those familiar with the infirmary's history sometimes recognized these small signs as the nurse's continued presence. Others dismissed them as imagination, until the manifestations grew more unmistakable. The nurse is most often seen in the patient rooms, where she appears as a woman dressed in early 20th century nursing attire, her uniform crisp, her demeanor calm. Students and staff describe her as moving silently through the hallways, pausing at bedsides, as if checking on a patient. Some have claimed to feel a comforting pressure on their shoulders, or the sensation of a hand brushing their hair back, gentle gestures of care that evoke a profound sense of safety. Unlike many ghost stories, these encounters are rarely frightening. Instead, they leave witnesses with an odd mixture of awe, reverence, and, at times, melancholy. The auditory phenomena associated with the nurse are equally compelling. Some students report hearing soft, soothing words, comforting phrases spoken just beyond the range of understanding. Others describe the faint sound of a nurse's cart rolling along the corridor, the gentle clinking of metal instruments, or the quiet murmur of a voice reading instructions for care. These sounds are never harsh or alarming. They are patient, deliberate, and filled with purpose, as if the nurse continues her duties from beyond the grave. Cold spots are another recurring feature of the haunting. Students walking alone in the infirmary after hours have felt sudden drops in temperature, often in the patient rooms where the nurse is most frequently seen. The cold is accompanied by the unmistakable feeling of being watched or protected. Some have even reported lights flickering in synchronization with her presence, as though the very environment acknowledges her spectral activity. These experiences create a tangible sense of the supernatural, reinforcing the idea that the nurse's spirit is not merely a memory but a living part of the infirmary's atmosphere. The nurse's legacy extends beyond solitary encounters. Many who have felt her presence report improved focus, comfort in times of stress, or even inexplicable emotional relief. One student recovering from a serious illness said she awoke to find her blankets gently tucked around her, as though someone had ensured she was warm and cared for. Others have found personal items, thermometers, books, or medical supplies placed neatly where they had been left in disarray, suggesting that the nurse's spirit continues to maintain order and provide care, even in subtle ways. Faculty and staff members have also shared experiences that point to the nurse's lingering presence. Custodians working late have felt her behind them in empty corridors, and security personnel on evening rounds have heard footsteps echoing in otherwise deserted halls. Even those skeptical of the supernatural often admit that something inexplicable lingers in the infirmary. The consistency and detail of these reports over decades suggest a presence that is deliberate, persistent, and profoundly connected to the location she once cared for in life. The story of the nurse has become a cherished part of Wilson College's history. Students tell her tale during campus tours, in dormitory conversations, and during informal ghost walks organized by the college's folklore enthusiasts. For many, she represents more than a ghost. She is a symbol of compassion, dedication, and the enduring impact one person can have on a community. Her presence reminds students that care and kindness can transcend even death, leaving a lasting imprint on the spaces and lives we touch. Despite the haunting, the infirmary remains a functioning part of the college, and encounters with the nurse are usually subtle, more comforting than terrifying. Her spirit is not one of malice or unrest. Instead, it embodies care, vigilance, and the quiet fulfillment of duty. Students learn to recognize the signs, the soft footsteps, the whispered words, the sudden chill, and many consider it an honor to share space with a presence so protective and steadfast. For Wilson College, the nurse in the infirmary represents a connection between past and present. Her ghostly presence ensures that the memory of her life and work endures, reminding the living that history is not merely a series of dates and events, but a tapestry of human experience, emotion, and devotion. In the quiet moments after classes have ended and the campus has grown still, the nurse continues her rounds, unseen yet profoundly felt, comforting those who remain, and preserving the spirit of care that defines both her legacy and the very heart of Wilson College. Penn State University, sprawling across the town of State College, Pennsylvania, is a campus known for its academic excellence, storied traditions, and vibrant student life. With its massive size and centuries-long history, it is no surprise that tales of the supernatural have woven themselves into the university's identity. Among the many ghost stories that circulate among students and staff, one of the most enduring and chilling centers around Schwab Auditorium, a historic performance hall that has seen generations of concerts, lectures, and theater productions. For decades, those familiar with the building have whispered about a figure dressed in old-fashioned clothing, a ghostly spectator who quietly observes performances from the balcony, leaving witnesses both fascinated and unnerved. Schwab Auditorium, with its high ceilings, ornate woodwork, and classic architecture, exudes an atmosphere of timelessness. It is a place where the echoes of the past mingle with the present. The creak of a floorboard, the hush of an audience settling, the subtle murmur of conversation before a performance begins. It is here, amid the shadows and dim lighting of the balcony, that the ghostly figure is most often seen. Students, performers, and even faculty members have recounted glimpses of a person in attire reminiscent of the early 20th century, seated in the upper rows, watching attentively, though the figure never moves toward anyone or interacts directly. Its presence is unmistakable, and it is always perceived as deeply solemn, almost as if bound by a sense of duty or purpose. The earliest reports of the figure date back to the mid-1900s. When older alumni recalled seeing a shadowy form seated in the balcony during evening recitals. Over time, the stories became more detailed. Witnesses described the figure as wearing a long coat or dress typical of decades past, with features that are often difficult to discern in the dim lighting, but still convey a sense of humanity. The figure appears during performances, observing quietly, then vanishing shortly after the event concludes. The most common theory among students is that this is the spirit of someone deeply connected to the auditorium, perhaps a former professor, patron, or dedicated patron of the arts, who maintained a lifelong interest in performances at Penn State. Many encounters are accompanied by subtle, yet unmistakable signs of her presence. Audience members have reported feeling sudden drops in temperature when the balcony area is unoccupied. Some describe an inexplicable stillness in the air, a sensation that the space itself has grown heavier, as if someone is observing silently from above. Others have reported hearing soft, almost imperceptible sighs, or the rustle of fabric, particularly when the balcony is otherwise empty. These sensations leave witnesses with the impression of being watched, but not threatened, an awareness of a presence that is attentive, solemn, and perhaps longing. Students involved in theater productions have their own stories. Actors rehearsing on stage during evening sessions have occasionally felt eyes upon them, even when the balcony appears empty. Props or sheet music sometimes shift slightly without explanation, and lights flicker in ways that do not correspond with electrical issues. While skeptics attempt to rationalize these occurrences, the consistency of the experiences over decades has convinced many that Schwab Auditorium is home to a lingering presence, one that refuses to leave the hall it once cherished in life. The figure in the balcony is often referred to simply as the observer among students and staff. Her presence is widely regarded as benign, even protective. Some performers claim that when she appears, their stage presence improves, as though her silent attention encourages them to give their best performance. Others believe she is a reminder of the university's long history, a living connection, or, rather, a ghostly connection between past and present, urging the campus community to honor the legacy of those who came before. There are also stories from custodial staff and late-night security personnel. Some report hearing faint footsteps in the balcony area, even when no one else is in the building. Others describe catching a fleeting glimpse of the figure as they pass beneath the stage, or noticing an empty seat in the balcony rocking slightly, as though someone has just stood. The phenomenon is most active in the quieter hours of the evening, when the building is still and the energy of the audience is absent, yet the sense of observation remains palpable. The figure's presence has inspired a range of campus folklore. Ghost tours of Penn State frequently include Schwab Auditorium as a highlight, recounting tales of past performances, the lingering spirit of a devoted spectator, and the uncanny experiences of those who have crossed paths with her. Some students treat it as a rite of passage to visit the balcony after dark, listening carefully for soft footsteps, fabric rustling, or the quiet hum of attention that signals her presence. Each encounter reinforces the idea that Schwab Auditorium is more than a building. It is a vessel of memory, emotion, and unfinished stories. Over the decades, the observer has become a symbol of continuity and devotion. She represents a love for the arts and a connection to Penn State's history that transcends mortality. Unlike more malevolent hauntings, her presence is soothing and inspiring, a gentle reminder that some attachments are enduring, and that passion and care can linger long after life has ended. Today, Schwab Auditorium continues to host concerts, lectures, and performances, and yet the ghostly figure in the balcony remains a part of its identity. Students, staff, and visitors alike learn to respect her presence, understanding that the space carries echoes of the past. Whether she is a former faculty member, a devoted patron, or simply a spirit drawn to the life of the auditorium, her watchful presence endures. For those who glimpse her in the balcony, feel the sudden chill, or hear the faint rustle of movement, Penn State University offers not just a place of learning, but a reminder that some histories are alive in ways far more mysterious than textbooks can convey. Her flowing attire, her soft footsteps, and her solemn presence are a bridge between the university's past and present, reminding all who enter that history lingers, memory persists, and some spirits remain devoted to their earthly passions long after they have passed. Moravian College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, is widely known for its historic campus, academic excellence, and charming cobblestone streets that wind between centuries-old buildings. Yet beneath the quiet beauty of the college lies a history that is both remarkable and chilling. Long before it became a center of learning, parts of the campus were used as a hospital during the Revolutionary War. It is here, in the shadows of its historic buildings and along its cobblestone pathways, that students and staff have reported encounters with spirits, echoes of soldiers who once fought and suffered on the very grounds now occupied by classrooms, dormitories, and lecture halls. The most persistent tales come from the oldest parts of campus, buildings and hallways that date back to the 18th century. Many of these structures were converted into makeshift hospitals during the war, housing wounded soldiers from both sides. Accounts from that time describe crowded rooms, minimal medical supplies, and the sounds of suffering that echoed through the halls. It is said that the energy of those experiences has never fully left the campus. Today, students and staff report hearing the moans of the wounded late at night, long after the campus has gone quiet, as though the echoes of pain and fear have been imprinted onto the very walls of the buildings. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves the sound of footsteps in areas that are otherwise empty. Students leaving late-night study sessions or walking to dormitories have described hearing the slow, deliberate tread of boots along corridors and stairwells. The footsteps often stop and start unpredictably, sometimes appearing to approach and then recede without warning. On occasion, the rhythm of the steps suggests more than one person, leading witnesses to believe that entire groups of soldiers are still wandering the campus in spectral formation. These encounters are almost always accompanied by a cold chill, sudden and intense, which seems to sweep through the area like a ghostly draft. Moaning and whispering are other common elements of the haunting. Several students have reported hearing low, guttural sounds of anguish, sometimes followed by faint commands or murmured names. The sounds are described as coming from old rooms or long-abandoned hallways, yet when approached, there is nothing to be found. Staff working in the older buildings late at night often recount similar experiences. The eerie echo of voices, the soft clinking of metal instruments, or the faint creak of doors that have been securely locked. These experiences are unnerving because they carry a realism that transcends imagination, leaving those who hear them with an undeniable sense of presence. One striking story comes from a student living in one of the dormitories nearest the old hospital wings. Late one night, while studying alone, she heard the sound of soldiers marching across the hallway outside her room. She described the rhythmic thumping, punctuated by the occasional groan or cry, as if the wounded were being moved on stretchers. Terrified but unable to look away, she eventually saw faint, shadowy figures moving past the window. The figures were indistinct, their forms blurred as though obscured by time. Yet she could make out the suggestion of uniforms and bandages. The presence was intense but not aggressive, leaving her frozen with awe and fear until it slowly faded into silence. Faculty and custodial staff have similar accounts. Night janitors report hearing the shuffle of feet in long-abandoned classrooms or feeling a sudden cold draft pass through them, as though a body had moved past. Some have noted that doors open and close without cause. Lights flicker in the oldest buildings, and even objects such as chairs or books seem to shift mysteriously. The consistency of these occurrences across decades and among multiple witnesses has led many to believe that Moravian College's campus is uniquely attuned to the energy of its past. The haunting of Moravian College is often linked to the Revolutionary War itself. Local historians suggest that the intensity of the soldiers' suffering and the crowded conditions of the hospital may have left an indelible imprint on the buildings. The soldiers were young men, far from home, facing injury, disease, and the constant threat of death. Their anguish was palpable and immediate, and it seems to have persisted in spectral form, replaying their last moments for those who walk the halls centuries later. Some believe that these spirits are not malevolent. Rather, they are trapped echoes, unable to find peace until their stories are acknowledged and remembered. In addition to auditory phenomena, visual sightings have also been reported. Students have glimpsed shadowy figures in hallways, indistinct silhouettes that vanish when approached. Some have seen spectral soldiers in the courtyard, sometimes walking silently in formation, other times appearing to pause, as if waiting for instructions or tending to unseen comrades. Witnesses often describe the figures as semi-transparent, dressed in period uniforms, carrying the weight of their experiences in every gesture. These visions, while fleeting, are vivid enough to leave lasting impressions. The stories of haunting at Moravian College have become an integral part of its identity. Students share the tales during orientation, late-night conversations, and informal ghost tours. Alumni often recount their own experiences, adding layers to the narrative that span generations. The haunting serves as a reminder that history is not confined to textbooks or plaques, but is alive in subtle, sometimes unsettling ways, lingering in the spaces where past lives intersect with the present. For those walking the campus late at night, the echoes of the past are difficult to ignore. The moans of the wounded, the sound of boots on ancient floors, the chill in the air, and the occasional glimpse of shadowy soldiers all point to a presence that refuses to be forgotten. Moravian College is not just a place of learning. It is a living repository of memory. In Moravian College's historic buildings, the past and present coexist in eerie harmony. Students, faculty, and visitors alike may feel it a sudden chill, a fleeting shadow, or a soft groan in the night, reminding them that the history of this campus is far more than dates and events. It is a story of human struggle, endurance, and lingering spirits, echoing across centuries in the quiet halls of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Edinburgh University, nestled in the rolling landscapes of northwestern Pennsylvania, is known for its vibrant campus life and historic buildings that have housed generations of students. Among these structures, Academy Hall stands out, not just for its age or architectural charm, but for the stories that whisper through its corridors long after classes have ended. Built in the late 19th century, Academy Hall is one of the oldest buildings on campus, and it has earned a reputation as a place where the veil between the living and the departed feels unusually thin. The most enduring legend revolves around a young girl whose presence has been reported by countless students, faculty, and staff over the decades. The girl is said to be most active in the hallways of Academy Hall, moving quietly and unseen. Those who have encountered her often describe hearing the soft, melodic sound of nursery rhymes drifting through empty corridors. The singing is unmistakably childlike, innocent, and haunting at the same time. Witnesses describe the tunes as eerily familiar, yet impossible to place, echoing faintly off the walls and creating an atmosphere that is both unsettling and sorrowful. It is not the kind of sound that startles violently, but one that draws attention, prompting students to pause mid-step, straining to locate the source. Accounts of sightings vary in detail, but the consistent element is the presence of a young girl, appearing to be no older than 10. She is described as wearing a simple dress reminiscent of the early 20th century. Her hair sometimes long and flowing, sometimes tied back in a modest ribbon. Her figure is often fleeting, a shadow at the edge of vision, disappearing when approached, leaving behind the faint echo of her lullaby and an icy chill in the air. Some witnesses claim to feel a light brush, as if she passed by without fully manifesting, a sensation that leaves an unmistakable impression on the skin. Students studying late into the night in Academy Hall, as classrooms and library rooms, have reported unusual experiences. One student, working on a term paper, heard the soft singing begin outside her door. At first, she assumed it was another student or perhaps a recording. But when she stepped into the hallway, the corridors were empty. The sound persisted, growing fainter as she moved, until it vanished entirely, leaving only the unsettling feeling of having been observed. Another story tells of a group of friends exploring the empty hallways after hours. They reported seeing a small figure dart across the floor, accompanied by the faint echo of a nursery rhyme. When they tried to follow, the girl seemed to vanish into the walls themselves, leaving them puzzled and spooked. Staff and faculty members have also had encounters with the mysterious girl. Custodians working late at night have described hearing soft humming or singing when the building is otherwise silent. Some have noticed a flicker of movement at the edge of their vision, only to turn and find empty hallways. Security personnel on evening rounds sometimes report sudden cold spots in areas where the girl is most frequently seen, accompanied by the faint scent of old-fashioned soap or flower scents that are out of place, but linger just long enough to suggest a presence. These experiences, while not threatening, create a strong sense of something unseen, observing the living. The origins of the girl remain a mystery. Local legends suggest she may have been a student or resident associated with Academy Hall during its early years. Perhaps someone who passed away tragically or too young. Other accounts speculate that she may have been a visitor or child of a staff member, a soul tied to the building by a life interrupted too soon. Regardless of her true identity, the spirit is widely regarded as harmless. Those who have encountered her consistently report feelings of melancholy rather than fiery quiet, persistent sadness that seems to permeate the hallways and linger after the singing has ceased. Over the years, the stories of Academy Hall have been passed down from one class of students to the next. The legend of the little girl and her nursery rhymes has become a staple of campus folklore, shared during late-night conversations, orientation tours, and informal ghost walks. Some students treat the story as a rite of passage, daring one another to spend time in the hall after dark, listening for the faint sounds of singing, while some approach it with skepticism. The repeated nature of the experiences, often in similar locations and under similar circumstances, lends credibility to the tales in the eyes of many. The haunting of Academy Hall also serves as a subtle reminder of the university's long history. Buildings like this one carry not only physical memories, but also emotional and psychological imprints of those who once inhabited them. The presence of the young girl singing nursery rhymes creates a bridge between the past and present, a spectral reminder of the lives, joys, and sorrows of those who came before. Her voice, faint yet persistent, acts as a haunting echo, preserving a sense of innocence amidst the passage of time. While her appearances are brief, they leave lasting impressions on those who witness them. Students often report lingering feelings of nostalgia, melancholy, or even a heightened sensitivity to the history around them. Some describe a profound empathy, imagining the girl's life and the circumstances that tether her spirit to Academy Hall. The gentle, sorrowful melodies of her nursery rhymes seem to transcend time, touching the hearts of all who hear them and leaving an indelible mark on the campus psyche. In Edinburgh University's Academy Hall, the young girl continues her quiet vigil. Her soft singing drifts through hallways, a tender yet haunting presence that reminds students, faculty, and visitors that history and memory are never truly gone. The building's walls, aged and storied, carry the echoes of her song, ensuring that her presence remains a permanent part of the campus, bridging the past and present in a melody that lingers long after the lights go out. Slippery Rock University, nestled in the rolling hills of western Pennsylvania, is a campus rich with history, academic tradition, and the energy of thousands of students passing through its halls each year. While the university is known for its strong programs and vibrant student life, it also holds a darker, more mysterious side, one that has intrigued and unsettled students for decades. Across the campus, particularly in the older buildings and long-unused classrooms, there are countless reports of unexplained phenomena. Shadows flicker in empty rooms, doors creak without explanation, and, most unsettling of all, students sometimes hear their own names whispered in the dark when no one else is present. The stories of Slippery Rock University's haunted classrooms are most commonly told among students who stay late for study sessions, rehearsals, or club meetings. These classrooms, many of them with high ceilings, long rows of desks, and aged chalkboards, carry a sense of history that feels tangible. Witnesses frequently report seeing shadows move across the walls or the floor, often at the periphery of their vision. The shapes are fleeting, gone as soon as they turn to look, but the feeling that someone, or something, is present remains strong. Some students describe the shadows as vague human forms, while others say they appear almost liquid, moving in ways that defy the natural flow of light and shape. One student recounted an experience during a late-night study session in one of the older science classrooms. Alone, she was concentrating on her notes when she noticed a shadow cross the room behind her. At first, she thought it was a trick of the dim lighting or a passing car outside the window. But as she looked closer, she realized the shadow had movement and form that was not her own. Moments later, she distinctly heard someone whisper her first name. A soft, almost urgent voice that seemed to come from nowhere. Terrified, she grabbed her belongings and left immediately, only to return the next day and find nothing unusual. Yet the memory of that whispered name lingered vividly. Auditory phenomena are a recurring theme in reports of Slippery Rock's haunting. Students have reported hearing whispers in empty classrooms, footsteps echoing along hallways, and the faint sound of papers rustling or chalk scraping across a blackboard when the rooms are otherwise empty. Some claim to hear doors creak open or slam shut without explanation. The whispered voices are perhaps the most chilling, as they are often personalized, calling the witness by name or speaking in fragmented sentences. While no one has ever seen the source of the voices, the effect is undeniably real, leaving students shaken and unsure of what they have experienced. Custodial staff and security personnel have also reported strange activity in the older buildings. Night janitors have recounted seeing fleeting shadows out of the corner of their eyes, or feeling a sudden presence behind them in empty hallways. Some have experienced cold spots, sudden drops in temperature that accompany the shadowy figures, and others describe the sensation of being watched when no one is present. Even the most skeptical employees find it difficult to explain the consistent patterns of sightings and auditory phenomena that occur in the same locations night after night. The most haunted areas are said to be classrooms and offices that have not been used regularly for years. Their age and history seem to amplify the sense of presence. Windows, often tall and narrow, allow moonlight to cast long shadows across the floor, creating a natural stage for the mysterious movements that witnesses report. Many students note that the shadows appear more active during certain times of the year, particularly late fall and winter, when the campus is quieter and the nights are longer. During these months, stories of whispers, moving shadows, and cold spots increase dramatically, reinforcing the belief that the university holds lingering energies from the past. Theories about the cause of these hauntings vary widely. Some students speculate that the shadows are residual energy from past occupants, perhaps former teachers, students, or staff who spent decades in these rooms. Others believe the phenomena are connected to the intense emotions and stress often present in a university setting, particularly in classrooms where students spent long nights studying or working on projects. Some paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the buildings themselves, with their historic architecture and aged construction materials, may act as conduits for spiritual energy, amplifying the presence of lingering entities. Despite the fear they inspire, the hauntings of Slippery Rock University are not generally considered malevolent. Witnesses often describe feelings of unease, curiosity, or melancholy rather than outright terror. The shadows and whispers seem to observe rather than harm, silently reminding students of the weight of history and the energy left behind by countless lives that have passed through these halls. In some cases, encounters are brief, leaving only a chill in the air and a faint sense of being watched. In others, they are longer, involving multiple sensory experiences that make the supernatural presence undeniable to the witness. The legend of Slippery Rock's haunted classrooms has become a part of campus culture. Ghost stories are shared in dorms, during late-night study sessions, and on informal campus tours. For new students, hearing about the shadows and whispered names becomes a rite of passage, a reminder that the university is not only a place of learning, but also a repository of memory and mystery. Alumni frequently recount their own experiences, adding depth to the stories and ensuring that the legacy of these spectral occurrences persists through generations. For those who wander the empty classrooms of Slippery Rock University at night, the experience is unforgettable. Shadows flicker at the edges of vision, cold drafts sweep the hallways, and faint whispers echo in the silence. Whether these phenomena are the result of restless spirits, echoes of past emotions, or something even stranger, the effect on those who encounter them is undeniable. The historic halls of Slippery Rock hold more than lessons in academics. They hold traces of lives, voices, and shadows that continue to linger, quietly observing the living. and keeping the past alive in ways both eerie and unforgettable. Indiana University of Pennsylvania, located in the heart of Indiana, Pennsylvania, is a campus steeped in academic tradition and history. Among its many historic buildings, Lawrence Hall has gained a reputation that extends beyond its educational significance. It is said to be haunted by a tragic figure, a former student who took his own life within its walls. For decades, students, staff, and visitors have reported eerie experiences. Lights flickering without cause, cold spots appearing suddenly, and, most chillingly, the sound of a rope creaking in the silence of empty corridors. Lawrence Hall, with its tall ceilings, narrow hallways, and aged classrooms, carries an atmosphere that seems almost alive. Those who frequent its halls speak of a palpable heaviness, a feeling of being watched, or a sudden shift in the air temperature. While some attribute these experiences to the building's age, the stories of the student who ended his life here lend a much darker undertone. The legend describes a young man struggling with personal turmoil, a promising student who quietly suffered in solitude. One night, despair overtook him, and he took his life within the hall, leaving a lingering presence that is said to remain to this day. The first reports of supernatural activity emerged shortly after the tragic incident. Students who stayed late in classrooms or study areas began noticing flickering lights. Initially, these incidents were dismissed as electrical issues or the quirks of an aging building. However, over time, other, more disturbing phenomena appeared. Some students reported hearing the faint creak of a rope, soft and rhythmic, echoing through the hallways when no one else was present. The sound is often accompanied by a chilling drop in temperature, leaving those who hear it frozen, with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Many witnesses describe seeing lights turn on and off without explanation. Overhead fluorescent bulbs or lamps will flicker or abruptly shut off, even when they have been recently replaced or carefully maintained. In some cases, multiple lights have blinked in unison, creating a strobe-like effect that can leave students uneasy. These incidents often occur at night or in empty classrooms, times when the hallways are silent except for the distant creak of the rope, as if the building itself is echoing the events of that fateful night. Students staying late to study frequently recount feeling the presence of someone nearby. Shadows appear at the edges of visions, sometimes small and fleeting, sometimes larger, moving as though pacing the hallways. Some have even reported seeing the vague outline of a figure, hunched or stationary, in corners or near classroom doors. While these apparitions vanish when approached, the sensation of being watched remains strong, accompanied by the faint, almost imperceptible creak that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The auditory experiences are particularly chilling. The rope is said to creak in a slow, mournful rhythm, sometimes followed by whispers that cannot be clearly understood. Some students swear they can hear fragments of conversation or cries, muffled as if carried from another time. These sounds often intensify when someone is alone, creating a sense of isolation and vulnerability. Even those skeptical of the paranormal admit that there is something unnerving about the combination of flickering lights, cold spots, and inexplicable noises in Lawrence Hall. Custodial staff and security personnel have also shared stories that reinforce the building's haunted reputation. Night janitors report sudden temperature drops, the feeling of an unseen presence brushing past them, and the soft echo of footsteps where none should exist. Security guards on late rounds have observed lights flickering in empty classrooms and hallways, and some have reported hearing the slow creaking of the rope in areas where no ladders, pulleys, or equipment are present. The consistency of these accounts over decades has led many to accept that Lawrence Hall is a place where the past and present intersect in ways that cannot be easily explained. Over time, the legend of the student who hanged himself has become a part of campus folklore. Students share the story during orientation, on late-night walks, and in dormitory discussions. For many, it serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the pressures faced by young adults and the fragility of life. For others, the haunting is a test of courage. Dare to walk the empty hallways at night. Listen for the ropes creak and experience the flickering lights firsthand. Despite the fear it inspires, the presence in Lawrence Hall is not necessarily malevolent. Most who encounter it describe feelings of sadness, melancholy, or solemn awareness rather than aggression or threat. The shadowy figure, the creaking rope, and the flickering lights seem to communicate a lingering sorrow, a reminder of a life cut tragically short. It is a haunting that evokes empathy and reflection rather than terror, leaving those who witness it with a profound sense of history and emotional resonance. Faculty and students have learned to respect Lawrence Hall's presence. Those familiar with the stories report taking precautions, walking in groups, avoiding certain hallways late at night, and maintaining awareness of their surroundings. Yet for others, the building's haunted reputation is a draw, a place where history, memory, and the supernatural converge. Ghost enthusiasts, paranormal investigators, and curious students alike are drawn to the hallways, hoping for a glimpse, a sound, or a chill that connects them to the tragic events of the past. In Lawrence Hall, the echoes of that fateful night continue to reverberate. The rope creaks, the lights flicker, and shadows move silently along the hallways, a spectral reminder of the student who ended his life within its walls. For those who walk the empty corridors after dark, the presence is unmistakably haunting that is sorrowful, solemn, and profoundly human. The story of Lawrence Hall serves as a chilling reminder that some spirits linger, tied to the moments of their deepest despair, and that even in life's finality, their echoes may remain to be heard, felt, and remembered by those who come after. East Stroudsburg University, nestled in the heart of Pennsylvania's Pocono region, is known for its scenic campus, academic programs, and vibrant student life. Yet among its historic buildings, Monroe Hall stands out for a different reason, a chilling reputation that has persisted for decades. Students living in this dormitory have reported unnerving occurrences, the most consistent of which is the sound of pacing footsteps echoing across the floors above. What makes these accounts particularly eerie is that the rooms above are often empty, yet the rhythm of deliberate steps continues, carrying a presence that seems impossible to explain. Monroe Hall is one of the older dormitories on campus, with narrow corridors, creaking wooden floors, and rooms that retain the echoes of countless students who have lived and studied there over the years. Residents frequently describe hearing footsteps late at night, especially in the quiet hours when the campus is asleep. The pacing is slow and methodical, as if someone is walking back and forth in contemplation, unaware of or indifferent to the living world below. Those who have experienced it report a rising sense of unease, the kind that comes not from sudden scares, but from the realization that something unseen is present and persistent. Several students have shared similar accounts. One resident recounted lying in bed around midnight when she heard heavy footsteps above her room, pacing repeatedly across the ceiling. She assumed her neighbors were moving about, but when she checked the dorm directory, she discovered that the rooms above hers were vacant. The pacing continued for several minutes, growing louder and then fading suddenly, as if the figure had grown tired or noticed her awareness. The experience left her shaken, yet intrigued, prompting her to ask upperclassmen about the phenomenon. She was met with knowing looks and hushed nods, confirming that she was not alone in hearing the footsteps that no one could account for. Others have described additional strange occurrences. Doors in the hallways above will sometimes creak or slam without cause. Lights flicker at unexpected moments, and students have reported cold drafts that seem to follow the rhythm of the pacing. Some say they have glimpsed fleeting shadows at the edges of their vision, always moving just beyond the threshold of recognition. The presence is subtle, yet persistent, creating a sense of tension that lingers long after the footsteps fade. It is an unsettling awareness that someone or something is walking the floors above, yet no one can be seen. Faculty and maintenance staff have also reported unusual activity in Monroe Hall. Custodians working late at night have heard the echo of footsteps in empty hallways, sometimes accompanied by the soft creak of floorboards. Even when they investigate the rooms above, they find nothing unusual. Professors occasionally conducting late study sessions or meetings in the dormitory have noted the inexplicable sounds, along with sudden chills or a sensation of being watched. The consistency of these reports across multiple witnesses has reinforced the dormitory's reputation as a place where the past and present seem to intersect in mysterious ways. The origin of the haunting is unclear, though several theories have been proposed. Some suggest that the footsteps belong to a former resident, perhaps a student who experienced tragedy while living in Monroe Hall, and whose spirit remains tethered to the building. Others believe the dormitory itself may retain residual energy from decades of student life, an echo of restless nights, late-night studying, and the anxiety and excitement that come with dormitory living. Whatever the source, the haunting has become a part of the lore of East Stroudsburg University, passed down from one generation of students to the next. Despite the fear it inspires, the phenomenon in Monroe Hall is often recounted with a mix of awe and fascination. Many students consider the footsteps a rite of passage, an eerie experience that connects them to the history of the dormitory and the generations of students who have come before. Alumni frequently share stories of hearing the same pacing, reinforcing the idea that this is not a figment of imagination, but a continuing presence that transcends time. Monroe Hall remains a focal point of curiosity and speculation on campus. For residents, the experience of hearing footsteps in empty rooms is both unsettling and unforgettable. It serves as a reminder that even in a bustling college environment, echoes of the past can linger, leaving their mark on the present. The dormitory's creaking floors and empty hallways are more than just architectural features. They are the stage for a haunting that continues to intrigue, frighten, and connect students to the unseen. At East Stroudsburg University, Monroe Hall stands as a silent witness to the lives of its residents, both living and departed. The pacing footsteps, the cold drafts, and the fleeting shadows ensure that the dormitory is never truly empty, and that the spirit of the building, whatever it may be, remains a constant, spectral presence, walking its endless, unseen path above the students who dwell within. Albright College, located in Reading, Pennsylvania, is renowned for its strong academic programs, historic campus, and vibrant student life. Yet, within its storied walls lies a place that has captivated the imaginations of students for generations: Alumni Hall. This venerable building, named in honor of the college's graduates, is not only a hub of academic activity, but also a center of inexplicable occurrences. Over the years, students and staff have reported encounters with a mysterious presence, a stern-looking professor, whose apparition is said to haunt the hallways and lecture rooms, vanishing whenever confronted. Alumni Hall is one of the oldest buildings on campus, its architecture reflecting the dignity and tradition of a college steeped in history. Tall windows, creaking floors, and shadowy corridors give the building a unique atmosphere, particularly at night. The stories surrounding the haunting often center on the upper floors, where classrooms and offices have stood for decades. It is here that the figure of the professor has been most frequently sighted. Witnesses describe a man in traditional academic attire, his robes neatly arranged and his demeanor formal, moving quietly through corridors or pausing outside classrooms as if supervising unseen students. The professor's apparition is said to be stern and imposing. Many students who have seen him report an immediate sense of tension or unease, as though the spirit embodies the exacting standards and discipline he enforced in life. He does not interact directly with the living, but his presence is undeniable. Some students describe feeling a sudden chill in the air, a weight of observation, as if their every action were being silently judged. When approached, the figure reportedly disappears without warning, leaving behind only the faint echo of footsteps or a lingering sense of being watched. Auditory phenomena often accompanies sightings of the professor. Students have reported hearing the shuffle of heavy robes along the hall, the faint scratching of chalk against blackboards in empty classrooms, and the occasional low murmur of what sounds like a lecture being given to absent students. These sounds are subtle yet persistent, enough to draw attention and unsettle anyone who happens to be alone in the hall. Some have claimed that the lecture excerpts seem to echo across time, fragments of lessons delivered decades ago that continue to resonate in the present. The haunting is not limited to visual and auditory experiences. Witnesses have described cold spots appearing in rooms where the professor is most often seen. These sudden drops in temperature can be intense, leaving students shivering or feeling as though they have stepped into a different environment altogether. Objects, too, have been reported to move slightly, as if nudged by an unseen hand. A book shifted on a shelf, a door gently ajar, or papers fluttering on a desk. While these incidents are subtle, their cumulative effect reinforces the sense of a presence that is both watchful and persistent. One student recounted an encounter while preparing for a late-night study session in an empty classroom. As he arranged his notes, he sensed a presence behind him and turned to see the silhouette of a man in academic robes standing near the chalkboard. The figure's stern expression was unmistakable, and though the student froze, he felt no immediate danger, only a heavy weight of observation. When he tried to speak, the figure vanished, leaving the room silent, except for the soft hum of the heating system. Experiences like this are not isolated. Numerous students and faculty have shared remarkably similar stories, reinforcing the legend of Alumni Hall's ghostly professor. Faculty members also acknowledge the building's reputation. Some have reported encountering the apparition during late-night work sessions or while walking between classrooms. Maintenance staff recount hearing footsteps echoing along empty corridors or finding rooms slightly rearranged without explanation. Even skeptical staff admit that the consistency of these reports over the years is difficult to ignore. The apparition, whether spirit or something else, has become an undeniable part of the culture surrounding Alumni Hall. The origins of the professor remain a subject of speculation. Local lore suggests that he may have been a beloved yet strict instructor from the early 20th century, dedicated to his students and his work, but unable to leave the campus entirely upon death. Some believe his attachment to the college stems from a sense of duty, a lingering commitment to education that persists even beyond the grave. Others speculate that the spirit is the manifestation of collective memory, the way students and faculty imagine the exacting, watchful professors who once walked these halls. Whatever the truth, his presence continues to captivate and unsettle those who encounter him. Over time, the haunting of Alumni Hall has become woven into campus folklore. Students share stories during orientation, during late-night study sessions, and in conversations in the common areas. Alumni often recount their experiences when returning to campus, adding layers to the legend that persists across generations. The ghostly professor serves as a reminder of the building's long history, of the lives and lessons that shaped the college, and of the unseen ways the past can linger in the present. For those who walk the halls of Alumni Hall at night, the experience is unforgettable. The soft echo of footsteps, the cold chill in the air, the fleeting vision of a stern figure in robes all create an atmosphere where history feels alive. Witnesses leave with a sense of awe, respect, and a subtle unease, knowing that in this building, the past is not entirely gone. The professor continues his silent vigil, watching over classrooms long after the students have departed, a spectral reminder of duty, discipline, and the enduring presence of history at Albright College. In Alumni Hall, the boundary between the living and the past remains thin. The ghost of the professor walks silently among the hallways, his footsteps echoing, his gaze unseen but felt, and his presence an enduring part of the campus. For students, faculty, and visitors, the experience is a haunting yet fascinating reminder that even in places of learning, some spirits are unwilling or, perhaps, unable to leave, and that the echoes of the past can persist, waiting to be noticed by those who walk the halls long after dark. Arcadia University, nestled in the quiet town of Glenside, Pennsylvania, has a reputation that extends beyond its academic achievements and scenic campus. The university, originally known as Beaver College, carries a history steeped in both prestige and mystery. At the heart of this eerie legacy stands Grey Towers Castle, a grand, imposing structure that has captured the imagination of students, faculty, and visitors for generations. The castle, with its turrets, stone walls, and labyrinthine corridors, is not only a symbol of the school's storied past, but also a hotspot for paranormal activity, that continues to unsettle those who cross its threshold. Grey Towers Castle was built in the late 19th century by William Welsh Harrison, a wealthy industrialist, and later became part of Beaver College. Its architecture, inspired by European castles, exudes both elegance and an air of foreboding. The interior is filled with ornate rooms, long hallways, and grand staircases, many of which retain their original features. Yet behind this grandeur lies a darker history. Over the decades, countless reports have surfaced of unexplained phenomena, drawing the attention of ghost hunters, historians, and curious students. The most commonly reported sightings involve figures dressed in period clothing. Several students have described walking through the castle's hallways late at night, only to see a figure suddenly appear, clad in attire from the late 1800s or early 1900s. These apparitions often seem unaware of the living, walking purposefully as if engaged in some forgotten task or duty. Some students report seeing a woman in a long flowing gown gliding down a hallway, or a man in a suit standing silently at the end of a corridor, watching but never acknowledging their presence. The sightings are fleeting, and by the time witnesses gather their courage to approach, the figures have vanished, leaving behind only the eerie sensation of having been observed. Cold spots are another frequent occurrence in Grey Towers Castle. Even during the height of summer, visitors report sudden chills in specific areas, particularly in the grand hallways and near stairwells. These drops in temperature are often accompanied by other phenomena, such as the faint sound of footsteps on wooden floors, the creak of doors opening and closing, or the soft rustle of unseen movement. Some students have recounted feeling a sudden, inexplicable presence behind them, only to turn and find empty hallways and silent rooms. The combination of visual apparitions and chilling sensations creates an atmosphere that is both unnerving and compelling, keeping the legends of Grey Towers alive. Staff and faculty members have also experienced unexplainable events. Custodians working late at night have reported lights flickering without electrical cause, doors locking or unlocking on their own, and hearing whispers in rooms that should be empty. Professors occasionally working in the castle after hours have described papers moving on desks, books falling from shelves, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched while alone. These reports are so frequent that many longtime employees have come to expect occasional disturbances, often shrugging them off as part of the building's peculiar personality. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the spirits in Grey Towers Castle may be tied to its history. The castle has seen decades of activity, from the Harrison family's private life to its transformation into a college campus. Students and staff over the years have come and gone, and some of those who passed through its halls may not have fully left. Residual energy, they argue, could manifest as figures in period clothing, especially in locations associated with significant emotional events or daily routines from the past. Despite the unsettling experiences, many students find the stories of Grey Towers Castle intriguing rather than frightening. Some even consider encountering the apparitions a unique rite of passage at Arcadia University. Walking the hallways at night, they become aware of the living history surrounding them, sensing the lingering presence of those who walked before. The castle's combination of architectural beauty and spectral mystery adds a layer of depth to the campus, blending the past and present in ways that are both fascinating and eerie. Whether wandering students glimpse a figure in Victorian attire or feel the sudden chill of a cold spot, Grey Towers Castle remains a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is uncertain. Its grand halls, silent staircases, and shadowed corners continue to captivate and unsettle, ensuring that Arcadia University's most famous building is remembered not only for its academic legacy, but also for the spirits that quietly roam its halls. The castle stands as a testament to the idea that some places, no matter how beautiful, retain echoes of the past that refuse to fade, leaving visitors and students alike to wonder who else might be walking beside them unseen. La Salle University, located in the heart of Philadelphia, is known for its academic excellence and historic campus. Among its many buildings, the University Chapel has become the focal point of some of the most intriguing and chilling paranormal stories on campus. Students, faculty, and visitors alike have reported hearing the faint but unmistakable sound of a choir singing in perfect harmony, even when the chapel is empty. The phenomenon is so consistent that it has become a well-known legend, a haunting echo that continues to fascinate and unsettle those who encounter it. The chapel, with its soaring ceilings, stained glass windows, and polished wooden pews, possesses an atmosphere that feels both solemn and sacred. Built decades ago, it has witnessed countless ceremonies, prayers, and musical performances. The grandeur of the space, combined with its acoustic design, makes it a natural setting for a haunting that is as much auditory as it is spiritual. Those who enter after hours often describe an immediate shift in the air, a sense of stillness that feels heavier than usual, as though the space itself is holding its breath. Reports of the choir usually begin with a faint murmur, barely audible, over the ambient sounds of the campus. At first, listeners often question whether the voices are real or merely a trick of the acoustics. But as the sound grows clearer, the harmonies become unmistakable. The choir seems to perform in perfect unison, their tones blending seamlessly, as if an unseen conductor is guiding them. Some students describe feeling an overwhelming sense of awe and serenity when the voices appear, as though the music is both beautiful and sorrowful at the same time. The experiences are not limited to sound alone. Several witnesses have reported other phenomena accompanying the choir. Cold drafts often sweep through the chapel, even on warm days, and flickers of light sometimes dance across the stained glass, as if the windows themselves are alive with movement. In some instances, shadows of figures in choir robes are glimpsed near the altar or along the aisles, vanishing when approached. The combination of auditory and visual disturbances reinforces the impression that the chapel is inhabited by spirits connected to its musical past. One student recounted a particularly striking encounter while studying late one evening. She had been sitting in a pew, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam, when she heard the soft hum of voices echoing through the empty space. At first, she assumed another student was practicing, but as she looked around, the chapel remained completely vacant. The sound grew stronger, forming distinct harmonies that seemed to fill the entire building. Goosebumps rose on her arms, and she felt a shiver run down her spine as the voices faded as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the space in an almost eerie silence. Faculty members and maintenance staff have shared similar accounts. Custodians working late have reported hearing the choir during routine cleaning or maintenance tasks. Security personnel on night rounds sometimes pause when the sound drifts through hallways or when the faint echoes of harmonizing voices are carried from the chapel. In all cases, the phenomenon appears without warning, lingering long enough to be noticed, but fading before any direct investigation can take place. These repeated experiences suggest that the presence is persistent, tied perhaps to the chapel itself, rather than to any single person or event. Some speculate that the haunting is connected to the long history of music at La Salle University. For decades, the chapel has hosted choral performances, religious ceremonies, and musical rehearsals, providing ample opportunity for intense emotional energy to accumulate. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the choir may be a form of residual energy, an echo of performances that occurred so frequently and with such intensity that the spirit of the music continues to replay itself. Others believe the phenomenon may represent the presence of actual spirits, former choir members or musicians bound to the chapel by their devotion and love of music. Despite the unsettling nature of the reports, most who experience the choir describe a sense of reverence rather than fear. The harmonies are beautiful, ethereal, and haunting, evoking both a sense of loss and wonder. Some students find comfort in the experience, feeling a connection to the past and to the generations who once walked the chapel's aisles. Others approach with curiosity and caution, aware that the voices are a reminder that the campus is layered with history and that the unseen can sometimes make itself known in extraordinary ways. The legend of the singing choir has become part of La Salle University's cultural fabric. Students share their experiences with newcomers, often as both a warning and a fascination. Alumni returning to campus frequently recount their own encounters, adding new layers to the story and ensuring that the haunting is passed down from generation to generation. Paranormal investigators occasionally visit, attempting to record the harmonies or capture visual evidence of the associated shadows. While results are inconclusive, the persistence of the reports has cemented the chapel's reputation as one of the most haunted locations on campus. For those who enter the chapel after dark, the experience is unforgettable. The faint harmonies, the cold drafts, the shifting shadows, and the overwhelming sense of presence create an atmosphere in which the past seems to coexist with the present. The choir, whether spectral or residual, transforms the chapel into a space where history, music, and the supernatural intersect, offering both wonder and a subtle unease. At LaSalle University, the chapel stands as a reminder that the past is never truly gone. The voices of the choir echo across decades, harmonizing in ghostly unison for anyone willing to listen. Students, faculty, and visitors are invited to witness the legacy of sound and spirit, a haunting that is both beautiful and chilling, a spectral testament to the enduring power of music and memory within the sacred walls of the chapel. Chatham University, nestled in the rolling hills of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is known for its historic campus, academic programs, and picturesque surroundings. Yet among its elegant buildings and leafy walkways, one dormitory has gained a reputation that is far less serene. Woodland Hall, a residence hall housing generations of students, has become infamous for reports of paranormal activity that continue to intrigue, unsettle, and even terrify those who live there. From flickering lights to doors unlocking on their own, and an unshakable sense of presence lingering near sleeping students. Woodland Hall has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted locations on campus. The dormitory itself is a charming structure, built with classic brick architecture and large, airy windows that overlook wooded areas of the campus. Despite its outward appearance of tranquility, the building holds a history that seems to have left an invisible mark. Students and staff alike describe an atmosphere that shifts unpredictably, particularly at night. What begins as ordinary sounds, a creak of the floorboards, the hum of heating systems, or the rustle of papers often escalates into experiences that defy explanation. One of the most commonly reported phenomena in Woodland Hall is the flickering of lights. Students recount being in their rooms studying or preparing for bed when the overhead lights suddenly dim, flare, or blink out completely, even when no electrical faults can be detected. The effect is often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature or a subtle sense of unease, as if the dorm itself is responding to an unseen presence. While some initially attribute the lights to electrical issues, the frequency and timing of the flickering have led many to believe that something more supernatural is at work. Doors unlocking or opening on their own is another frequent occurrence. Residents have reported waking to find their bedroom doors slightly ajar, despite having locked them before going to sleep. In some instances, students have heard the faint click of locks disengaging or the soft creak of hinges, only to discover that no one has entered the room. These inexplicable events often leave students feeling vulnerable and watched, reinforcing the belief that Woodland Hall is more than a typical dormitory. It is a space alive with lingering energies. Perhaps the most unnerving reports involve the sensation of a presence lingering near sleeping students. Many have described waking to the sensation of someone standing at the foot of their bed or hovering nearby. The feeling is often accompanied by a subtle pressure in the air, a sudden chill, or a sensation that their room is being observed. While some residents initially dismiss the experience as a dream or imagination, repeated incidents have convinced many that Woodland Hall harbors a conscious, watchful entity. The presence is rarely aggressive, but its constant observation leaves students with an unshakable awareness of being watched. Several students recount vivid encounters that have left a lasting impression. One resident described waking in the early hours to the sound of whispered words, indistinct but persistent, accompanied by the sensation that someone was pacing lightly in the room. When she turned on the lights, the room appeared empty, yet the uneasy feeling remained. lingering like a shadow that could not be dismissed. Another student reported the sudden illumination of her desk lamp, which had been off all night, coinciding with the unmistakable feeling that someone was leaning close, watching her study. Experiences such as these, though varied, share a common thread, a consistent presence, tangible yet invisible, that seems tied to the dormitory itself. Faculty and maintenance staff have also encountered strange activity in Woodland Hall. Custodians working late at night have heard footsteps echoing through empty hallways, doors opening and closing without explanation, and lights flickering in rooms with no occupancy. Security officers making rounds have reported cold spots and brief glimpses of shadows moving across hallways, disappearing when approached. Even skeptical staff members acknowledge that the consistency of these phenomena suggests more than mere coincidence or imagination. The origins of the haunting remain a subject of speculation. Some suggest that the building's age and long history of student occupancy have allowed residual energy to accumulate, replaying itself in moments of heightened awareness or emotion. Others believe that Woodland Hall may be inhabited by a conscious spirit, perhaps a former resident or someone who spent much of their life connected to the building, unwilling or unable to leave. Whatever the explanation, the presence in Woodland Hall has become an enduring part of the dormitory's identity. Over time, the legend of Woodland Hall has become woven into the student culture at Chatham University. Residents share stories with newcomers, cautioning them about the flickering lights, unexplained noises, and eerie presence. Alumni returning to campus often recount their own experiences, adding layers to the tales that span generations. Paranormal enthusiasts occasionally visit, attempting to capture evidence of the activity through audio recordings, photography, or even late-night vigils, though proof remains elusive. The persistence of the reports has cemented Woodland Hall's reputation as a place where the unseen is palpably present. For those who live or spend time in Woodland Hall, the experiences are unforgettable. The flickering lights, doors that unlock themselves, and the sensation of being watched combine to create an atmosphere that is equal parts awe-inspiring and unsettling. Students often leave encounters feeling a mix of fear and fascination, aware that they have glimpsed a layer of the campus that is invisible to most but undeniably real to those who experience it firsthand. Woodland Hall at Chatham University is more than a dormitory. It is a space where past and present converge, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and where an unseen presence continues to make itself felt. Its hallways and rooms, steeped in history and memory, are alive with unexplained phenomena that remind students and visitors alike that some presences linger long after life has ended, quietly observing, pacing, and enduring within the walls of the dormitory. Here, the supernatural is never far from everyday life, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who crosses its threshold. Lebanon Valley College, nestled in the quiet town of Annville, Pennsylvania, is known for its picturesque campus, historic architecture, and strong academic programs. Among its many buildings, one stands out for reasons far beyond its educational function: the old music building. Over the years, students and staff have reported experiences that defy explanation, the most famous of which involves pianos that seem to play themselves. At night, when the building is empty and silent, haunting melodies drift through the hallways, notes rising and falling as though invisible hands are drawn irresistibly to the keys. The music building has since become a focal point for ghost stories, its legacy entwined with both music and mystery. The music building, constructed decades ago, exudes the charm of a bygone era. Its large windows, wooden floors, and high ceilings create an atmosphere that feels almost alive, amplifying every sound and shadow. Students who frequent the building during the day often remark on its tranquil, studious ambience, but after hours, that tranquility transforms into something far more eerie. It is during these late hours that the building reveals its secret: pianos that seem to play on their own. These are not faint, accidental noises caused by drafts or settling wood. The melodies are deliberate, flowing, and unmistakably musical. Notes cascade from grand pianos and upright models alike, filling the air with harmonies that feel both beautiful and unsettling. Witnesses describe hearing the music in empty practice rooms or along long corridors with no visible performer. Some have paused in the hallways, straining to see who might be playing, only to find the room empty, the piano keys moving as if guided by an invisible force. The melodies range from soft, melancholic pieces to lively, almost celebratory tunes, often shifting abruptly in mood as if responding to unseen inspiration. Students report that the music is particularly active late at night, around midnight, when the building is at its quietest, heightening the sense of supernatural involvement. It is not only the music that unsettles those who encounter it. Many students speak of a palpable presence in the building, an invisible observer who seems to linger near them while they study or practice. Cold drafts sweep across rooms with no open windows, and the faint creaking of floorboards often accompanies the phantom melodies. Some have described the sensation of being watched, a quiet tension that grows as the notes continue, as if the building itself is aware of their presence. The combination of sound, temperature, and atmosphere creates an immersive experience that is difficult to ignore. One student recounted a particularly vivid encounter. While practicing scales on an upright piano in an empty room, he heard additional notes joining his own, harmonizing in a manner he could not have performed alone. He froze, unsure whether to continue, and when he looked up, he saw the keys moving on a nearby piano without anyone at it. The harmonies shifted and swelled, filling the room in a way that felt both joyful and sorrowful. When he tried to speak or approach, the music stopped abruptly, leaving him in stunned silence. Experiences like these are not isolated. Multiple students and faculty members have reported remarkably similar incidents, lending credibility to the stories that haunt the music building. Faculty members have also taken notice. Professors and maintenance staff working late have described hearing piano music drifting through the hallways, accompanied by inexplicable cold spots and flickering lights. One faculty member noted that when she entered the building after hours, the temperature dropped suddenly, and the sound of soft piano keys seemed to follow her from room to room. Custodians have reported finding piano benches slightly moved, even though they were left untouched earlier in the day. These incidents, repeated over decades, suggest that the haunting is persistent and deeply tied to the building itself. Paranormal investigators have occasionally visited the music building to attempt documentation of the phenomena. Audio recordings sometimes capture faint piano notes and unexplained harmonies, while thermal cameras detect sudden cold zones that cannot be explained by drafts or heating systems. Shadows and fleeting shapes have been observed in low-light footage, and some investigators report an unmistakable sense of a presence watching them, while skeptics suggest that the sounds may be caused by mechanical faults or imagination. The consistency and complexity of the music reported defies simple explanations. The origins of the haunting remain a subject of speculation. Some believe that a former music professor or student, deeply devoted to their craft, left an imprint on the building, a residual energy that manifests as phantom melodies. Others suggest that the building itself holds the memories of countless hours of practice, lessons, and recitals, and that these memories have taken on a tangible form that continues to replay for those present. Whatever the cause, the effect is the same. A space where the past and present intersect, where music becomes a medium for the unseen. Over time, the music building's ghostly reputation has become woven into the culture of Lebanon Valley College. Students share their experiences with peers, particularly during late-night study sessions or campus tours. Alumni recount encounters with the wandering melodies, passing on stories that span generations. The haunting has become a symbol of the college's history and its enduring relationship with the arts, illustrating how the passion and dedication of those who came before can linger long after their presence has departed. For anyone who enters the old music building after dark, the experience is unforgettable. The melodies of unseen hands, the shifting cold, the feeling of being quietly observed all create an atmosphere that is equal parts enchanting and unnerving. Students often leave these encounters with a deep respect for the building, history and a lingering sense that something beyond the ordinary continues to exist within its walls. At Lebanon Valley College, the old music building is more than a place of study. It is a bridge between past and present, a space where the echoes of practice and performance persist long after the last note was played. Pianos continue to sound themselves, notes drifting through empty halls as though the invisible hands of devoted musicians cannot resist the keys, leaving anyone who listens with an indelible sense of wonder, mystery, and reverent unease. Dickinson College, nestled in the historic town of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, is renowned for its beautiful campus and rich history. But among the ivy-covered buildings and quiet walkways, there exists a layer of the past that refuses to remain silent. Over the years, students, faculty, and visitors have reported sightings of a ghostly figure, a Revolutionary War soldier roaming the college grounds. The soldier, always described in full period uniform, has become a central figure in the campus's haunted lore, with many believing he is searching for his lost regiment, endlessly retracing steps frozen in time. The first reports of the soldier date back decades, passed along by students and alumni as whispered stories of eerie encounters. Witnesses describe seeing him standing in the misty early morning near the stone paths that wind across the campus, or walking slowly along tree-lined avenues. His uniform is reported to be accurate to the Revolutionary era, complete with a tricorn hat, a faded blue coat with brass buttons, and leather boots that seem to press firmly against the ground despite the ghostly nature of his presence. Some students report feeling a sudden chill when the soldier appears, a cold that lingers long after he has vanished from sight. One particularly memorable sighting occurred late in the fall semester. A group of students were returning from evening study sessions in Old West College Hall when they noticed a figure moving across the campus green. At first, they assumed it was a fellow student wearing a costume for a history-themed event. But as they drew closer, it became clear that something was not right. The menor figure moved with a deliberate pace, as though following a route known only to him. His eyes seemed distant, focused on something invisible, and no one heard the crunch of footsteps on the frosty grass. The students watched in awe and fear as he vanished into the fog near the edge of the campus, leaving only a whisper of movement and a sudden drop in temperature. Many students report that encounters with the soldier are accompanied by a sense of purpose in his movements. Unlike a random apparition, he appears to be searching for something, moving methodically across familiar routes and lingering near specific locations. Some speculate that he is reliving the moments before his unit was scattered in battle, eternally seeking comrades who have long since passed. Others believe the apparition may be tied to the college grounds themselves, which were once part of the larger Carlisle area used for troop movements during the Revolutionary War. The ghost is often seen near stone walls, old trees, and paths that date back to the 18th century, suggesting that he is connected both to the land and to the history it witnessed. It is not only the visual appearance that unsettles those who encounter the soldier. Many report hearing sounds that accompany him, soft clinks of metal, the faint murmur of marching, or the rustle of a uniform, as if the soldier were preparing for inspection. Some have even claimed to hear distant drum beats, the cadence of a regiment long gone. These auditory phenomena, paired with the visual sightings, create a fully immersive experience, leaving witnesses with an undeniable sense that they have glimpsed history alive, or at least a shadow of it, walking among them. Faculty and maintenance staff have also encountered the soldier. Custodians working late in the campus quads have reported seeing the figure move silently across the lawns, sometimes pausing as if studying the surroundings. Security personnel on night patrols occasionally hear the faint sound of commands or murmured orders that seem out of place for a quiet college campus. In every case, the soldier disappears upon closer inspection, leaving no trace. But the lingering impression that he is still searching, still wandering, still bound to his mission from centuries past. The Revolutionary War soldier has become an integral part of Dickinson College folklore. New students are often warned about the wandering ghost in hushed tones, especially around Halloween or during late-night study sessions. Alumni returning to campus frequently recount their own sightings, often adding detail to the legend. The tilt of the tricorn hat, the glint of brass buttons in moonlight, or the way he pauses before vanishing into the mist. The tale has become a symbol of the college's deep historical roots and a reminder that the past can persist in ways both tangible and mysterious. Paranormal enthusiasts have attempted to document the soldier's presence through photography and audio equipment, often reporting anomalies that cannot be explained by conventional means. Faint figures sometimes appear in the distance, and audio recordings occasionally capture sounds reminiscent of footsteps or distant military commands. While skeptics argue that these experiences can be attributed to imagination or natural phenomena, the consistency of reports over decades has created a strong case for the soldier's persistent presence. The soldier's apparition serves as a haunting reminder of the Revolutionary War and the sacrifices of those who fought for independence. His appearances connect students and visitors to a period of American history that is otherwise intangible, turning ordinary walks across campus into encounters with the past. Witnesses often report mixed feelings: awe at the historical connection, unease at the supernatural encounter, and a profound respect for the enduring spirit of a soldier who cannot rest. For those who encounter him, the Revolutionary War soldier of Dickinson College is more than a ghost. He is a living memory of a time long past, wandering through the college grounds in search of a lost regiment, retracing footsteps frozen in history. Students and visitors alike leave these encounters with an indelible impression, a story that bridges the centuries, and a chilling reminder that some spirits remain tethered to the past, bound by duty, honor, or unfinished business. Dickinson College, with its beautiful campus and storied history, is a place where the past never truly disappears. Amid the academic bustle, the Revolutionary War soldier continues to wander the grounds, a spectral reminder that history can walk among us, that some spirits are forever in pursuit of what was lost, and that the echoes of the past linger quietly in the shadows of the present. Cabrini University, located in Radnor, Pennsylvania, is known for its serene campus, historic architecture, and strong academic programs. Among the ivy-covered buildings and neatly manicured lawns, a story persists that chills both students and visitors, alike a tale of a spectral nun who roams the campus, her presence both commanding and mysterious. For decades, whispers have circulated about encounters with this otherworldly figure, describing her as a strict and imposing spirit who scolds students for misbehavior before disappearing without a trace. The nun is most often seen wearing the traditional habit of the order, her dark robes flowing and her white wimple framing a stern face. Witnesses describe her posture as rigid, her movements deliberate, and her expression unwavering, as though she were a guardian of rules that transcend the mortal world. Her appearances are rarely accompanied by warning. One moment, students may be walking along a quiet pathway or gathering outside a building, and the next, she is there, her voice sharp and unmistakable, delivering admonishments that are startlingly precise. The experience leaves many shaken, their initial disbelief replaced by a mixture of awe and unease. Students report hearing her voice clearly, echoing across courtyards and through empty halls. The words are often brief reminders to stay focused, to behave, or to respect the sanctity of the campus, but the tone carries an authority that is impossible to ignore. One student recounted walking late at night across the campus quad when a chilling, firm voice spoke directly behind her, saying, "Discipline your thoughts." She turned quickly, but no one was there. The temperature dropped suddenly, and a sense of being watched lingered long after the voice faded. These encounters are not simply auditory. Many students feel a palpable presence, a pressure in the air, or the sensation of eyes upon them, reinforcing the idea that the nun is more than just a shadow or trick of the mind. Her appearances are unpredictable, occurring at any hour and in various locations across campus. Some students encounter her near the chapel, others along walkways lined with trees, and some even within academic buildings. The haunting seems connected not to a particular time, but to the behavior of those she observes. Students report that the nun often manifests when they are engaging in mischief or neglecting their studies. as if her spirit is enforcing the discipline once upheld by living members of the religious order that founded the university. The fear she inspires is not malevolent, but corrective, and eerie reminder of moral and ethical accountability that transcends the ordinary rules of campus life. The first known sightings of the nun date back decades. Those stories suggest that her presence may stretch even further into the university's history. Alumni occasionally recount encounters that mirror those reported by current students. A stern voice, a sudden chill, the figure of a nun vanishing into thin air after delivering her message. Faculty members have also observed unusual occurrences. Custodians working late have reported the sudden sensation of someone standing nearby, a cold breeze brushing past, or faint footsteps echoing down hallways when no one else is present. The consistency of these reports over time has lent credence to the idea that the nun's spirit is a fixture of the campus. A watchful presence, bound by purpose and perhaps devotion to the institution's original mission. Paranormal enthusiasts have occasionally visited Cabrini University to investigate the phenomenon. Some claim to capture fleeting images of a figure in a nun's habit on security cameras or in photographs taken during late-night vigils. Others report electronic anomalies, phones, flashlights, and cameras malfunctioning in certain locations, coinciding with reports of the nun's appearance. While skeptics argue that these occurrences are coincidental or the result of overactive imaginations, the repetition and similarity of accounts from multiple witnesses suggest that there may indeed be an unexplained presence at work. Despite the fear she inspires, the nun is not universally perceived as threatening. Many students come to regard her as a peculiar but important part of the university's culture, a guardian of moral standards who reminds them of their responsibilities. Some even describe feeling a strange reassurance in her presence, as though she is watching over the campus, not only to chastise, but to guide. Yet, the encounters leave an indelible impression, often sparking reflection on behavior, choices, and the values instilled by the university's founding order. The legacy of the nun has become woven into the fabric of student life at Cabrini University. New students are often introduced to her story through campus lore, cautioned to be respectful and mindful, particularly when walking alone at night. Alumni shared their own experiences with humor, awe, or reverence, passing down the tale as both a warning and a curiosity. The narrative reinforces a sense of history and continuity, connecting the present student body with the traditions and spiritual foundations of the institution. For those who experience her firsthand, the nun's visits are unforgettable. The combination of sight, sound, and the sensation of her presence creates an encounter that is both chilling and oddly instructive. Students leave these moments with heightened awareness, a lingering shiver, and a story to tell, one that blurs the line between history, morality, and the supernatural. Cabrini University's ghostly nun is more than a tale to share around campus. She is a living reminder of the university's past and its enduring values. With her stern voice, commanding presence, and sudden disappearances, she continues to patrol the campus, silently observing, correcting, and reminding those who cross her path that some spirits linger not to frighten, but to ensure that the lessons of the past are never forgotten. In the quiet halls and moonlit quads of Cabrini, her presence remains a constant, spectral guardian, watching over the students who walk the same paths she once tread or perhaps still treads in the unseen world. Westminster College, located in the quaint town of New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, is known for its historic campus, academic excellence, and welcoming atmosphere. Yet tucked away among its ivy-covered buildings lies the Hoyt Science Center, a place where students and faculty have reported unnerving paranormal activity. Over the years, the Science Center has gained a reputation for strange happenings, particularly late at night, when the building is otherwise empty. Lab equipment moving on its own, inexplicable cold spots, and the pervasive sensation of being watched have left a lasting impression on those who spend time within its walls, earning the Hoyt Science Center a place among Pennsylvania's most haunted college sites. The building itself is imposing, with high ceilings, long hallways, and numerous laboratories filled with glassware, microscopes, and other scientific apparatus. By day, the halls bustle with students performing experiments and faculty conducting lectures. By night, however, the building seems to take on a life of its own. Students who remain after hours for late-night study sessions or research often report an unsettling feeling, as if the room is alive and observing them. The presence is not overtly threatening, but it is persistent and invisible awareness that causes hearts to race and minds to question reality. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the movement of lab equipment. Microscopes, beakers, and even heavy instruments are said to shift, slide, or topple without human intervention. Students recount experiences where they left their experiments set up, only to return minutes later to find items rearranged or slightly knocked over. The most chilling incidents occur when the equipment seems to move with purpose. A student once described stepping away from a microscope for a brief moment, only to return and see it angled differently, as though someone or something had been observing and adjusting it. Other reports include lab stools sliding across floors, books opening on their own, and drawers rattling without explanation, creating an atmosphere that is at once eerie and unnervingly precise. The sensation of being watched is another recurring theme. Students frequently describe the feeling that eyes are following them as they work late at night, even when no one else is present. Some report hearing faint footsteps echoing through empty hallways, the soft hum of unseen activity, or the click of glassware being handled when they are alone. The effect is subtle but persistent, often causing students to glance nervously over their shoulders or leave the building early, unsettled by the presence that seems to linger just out of sight. Several encounters have been particularly vivid. One student, working late on a chemistry project, reported feeling a cold breath against her neck, while no one else was in the lab. When she turned, nothing was there. But moments later, a Bunsen burner ignited on its own, sending a flickering glow across the room. Another student recounted seeing a lab stool move across the floor as if pushed by an unseen hand, the sound of scraping echoing loudly in the empty room. These experiences, though frightening, are not violent. Rather, they are marked by an insistence on observation, a presence that seems intent on remaining part of the nightly routine. Faculty members have also noticed unusual activity. Custodians cleaning after hours report hearing footsteps that echo but have no source, doors that open or close by themselves, and sudden temperature drops in specific labs. Occasionally, professors conducting research late at night have felt an inexplicable pressure in the room, accompanied by the sense that someone or something is standing nearby, silently observing the work being performed. Over time, these reports have established a pattern, lending credibility to the idea that the Hoyt Science Center is haunted by an unseen presence, one that is tied closely to the building and its long history of scientific inquiry. Paranormal investigators have occasionally visited the Hoyt Science Center to attempt to document the activity. Audio recordings sometimes capture faint sounds of glass shifting or footsteps where no one is present. Video footage occasionally shows shadows moving across lab surfaces, and thermal cameras detect sudden cold spots that cannot be explained by drafts or the building's HVAC system. While skeptics may attribute these phenomena to imagination or mechanical quirks, the consistency and detail of eyewitness accounts over decades suggest a haunting that transcends ordinary explanation. The history of the building itself may provide clues. The Hoyt Science Center has long been a hub of experimentation and research, where countless hours have been spent testing, observing, and analyzing the natural world. Some believe that the intense focus and energy of generations of students and faculty have left a residual imprint on the space, a kind of echo that manifests as the ghostly phenomena observed today. Others speculate that a former staff member or professor, deeply attached to the work conducted within the labs, continues to linger, watching over the building with an unwavering sense of duty. For students and faculty who encounter the ghostly activity, the experiences are unforgettable. The movement of equipment, the subtle pressures, and the cold drafts combine to create a sense of living history, a reminder that the building is more than just brick and mortar. Late-night study sessions in the Hoyt Science Center are rarely ordinary. Instead, they become encounters with the unexplained, blending curiosity, fear, and fascination. Hoyt Science Center at Westminster College is more than a place for scientific study. It is a location where the past and the unseen intersect. The ghostly presence that wanders the labs, moves the equipment, and watches students at work reminds all who enter that some energies linger. Drawn to the passion and purpose invested in the space over decades, here, the line between the ordinary and the supernatural blurs, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who spends time in the quiet, shadowed halls where science and mystery coexist in an eerie, unforgettable harmony. Delaware Valley University, located in the pastoral town of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, is renowned for its agricultural programs, scenic campus, and deep connection to the land. Yet beyond its classrooms and research barns lies a quieter, more mysterious side of presence that whispers through the fields after dark. On nights when the wind moves softly across the farmland and the moon casts pale light over the rows of crops, students and visitors have reported hearing voices echoing across the open fields. These sounds, faint yet unmistakable, have been attributed by many to the spirits of farmers who once worked the land, long after their bodies have returned to the soil. The fields surrounding Delaware Valley University have been in use for generations. Before the campus became a center for agricultural education, the land was tilled and cultivated by local farmers, whose livelihoods depended on the rhythm of planting and harvest. Some of these farmers met untimely or tragic ends, and over the decades, their presence has been said to linger among the rows of corn, wheat, and pasture. Witnesses often report hearing conversations carried on the wind, the rustle of clothing or tools, and even distant laughter or calls that seem human but have no identifiable source. One student recounted walking back to campus after a late-night study session at the research barns. As she crossed a field bathed in moonlight, she heard faint voices carried across the crops. At first, she assumed a group of students were nearby, but the sound seemed too distant and deliberate, shifting and moving as though following an unseen path. The voices whispered incomprehensible words, punctuated by the occasional rustle of what she described as a shovel scraping against earth. Though unnerved, she felt compelled to follow the sound for a moment, only to find herself alone, the field silent except for the swaying of the plants in the night breeze. The experience left her shaken, yet oddly reverent, as if she had glimpsed a connection to the past that most had long forgotten. Others have reported more active encounters. Students walking across the fields have felt sudden cold spots, an unnatural chill that seems to pass over them in the stillness of night. Footsteps are sometimes heard behind them, even when no one is visible, and the crunch of boots on grass or soil can be startlingly real. Some describe seeing shadowy figures moving between rows of crops, fleeting shapes that vanish when approached. These experiences, while brief, are vivid and memorable, creating an unsettling awareness that the land is not entirely empty, even in the dead of night. Faculty members have also noticed strange phenomena. Agricultural instructors working late in the barns or walking between fields have reported hearing the faint hum of voices or the rhythmic clatter of tools. Long after work has ended, maintenance staff occasionally notice footprints in the soft soil that lead to no visible destination or witness objects such as wheelbarrows and shovels slightly moved from their resting places. Even security personnel patrolling the campus after hours have remarked on sudden temperature drops and the sensation of unseen observers tracking their movements across open fields. The mysterious voices are not always frightening. Some describe them as almost comforting, a reminder of the long history of labor and dedication that built the farmland. However, the unpredictability of these sounds and sensations makes them deeply unsettling. Students frequently share stories with each other, particularly during evening classes or around campus events, reinforcing the folklore of the fields and keeping the legacy of the past alive. Alumni also recount their own encounters, often with similar descriptions. Whispers carried on the wind, shadows glimpsed between rows of crops, and the lingering feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Paranormal investigators and enthusiasts have occasionally visited Delaware Valley University to attempt documentation. Audio recordings sometimes capture faint murmurs or whispered phrases, indistinguishable but undeniably present. Video footage occasionally shows fleeting shapes crossing the fields or moving near the edges of barns and outbuildings. Thermal cameras pick up cold zones where no drafts or mechanical systems could account for the sudden drops in temperature. While skeptics suggest natural explanations, wild animals, or imagination, the consistency of reports over decades lends weight to the idea that something beyond the ordinary inhabits the campus grounds. The origin of the haunting is often traced to the deep connection between the land and those who worked it. Farmers who toiled for decades, dedicating their lives to planting, tending, and harvesting, may have left a lingering imprint on the earth, their spirits unable to rest completely. Some legends suggest that these farmers, committed to their work even in death, continued to walk the fields, checking the crops, moving through the rows, and occasionally making their presence known to those who crossed their path. Others theorize that the university's educational focus, steeped in the history and techniques of agriculture, amplifies the residual energy, binding past and present in an ongoing, spectral performance. For those who encounter the voices and apparitions, the experience is haunting and humbling. The whispers across the fields connect students and visitors to a history of labor, perseverance, and life deeply intertwined with the soil. The haunting is not merely a tale of fear. It is a story of respect, memory, and the enduring presence of those who shaped the land long before the university existed. Delaware Valley University's fields, silent by day and whispering by night, offer more than education. They offer a connection to the past. The voices that drift across the crops remind all who hear them that the land carries its history, that those who worked it may never have truly left, and that the echoes of dedication, struggle, and life itself continue to resonate in the stillness of the night. For anyone walking the fields of Delaware Valley after dark, the whispers are impossible to ignore, a spectral link to generations of farmers who remain eternally tied to the soil they once tended. Haverford College, located just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is celebrated for its historic campus, lush quads, and strong academic tradition. Yet behind the elegant brick buildings and meticulously maintained lawns lies a layer of the past that refuses to remain silent. Among the oldest dormitories on campus, stories persist of ghostly children, their presence at once unsettling and sorrowful. For decades, students have reported hearing the sounds of small feet running across the floors, playful laughter echoing through empty halls, and, in some cases, the startling sight of a child sitting quietly at the foot of their bed, only to vanish when spoken to. The oldest dorms at Haverford, with their narrow hallways, creaking floors, and vintage furnishings, create an atmosphere ripe for both imagination and inexplicable occurrences. Students often describe feeling a sudden chill as they move through the halls at night, accompanied by fleeting giggles or whispers that seem impossibly close yet cannot be traced to any living source. The footsteps are sometimes soft and tentative, like a child cautiously exploring, and at other times they are brisk and hurried, as though chasing an unseen friend through the hallways. Many students report that these sounds occur in moments of solitude, intensifying the eerie sense that the building is alive with spectral activity. One of the most vivid accounts comes from a student who had stayed late in her room, preparing for exams. As midnight approached, she heard the unmistakable sound of a small hand rapping lightly on her desk, followed by a series of soft, hurried footsteps running across the floor. Startled, she turned toward her bed and saw the faint outline of a small child sitting quietly at the foot. The figure's features were shadowed, but the presence was undeniable. She called out softly, asking if the child was there, and in response, the figure slowly faded into thin air, leaving her heart pounding and her mind racing. That night, and many nights afterward, she found herself double-checking the corners of her room and listening intently for any echo of movement. Other students have shared similar encounters. Some describe waking to find a translucent child standing by the door, peering curiously at them before disappearing when approached. Others hear the sound of toys being moved or dropped in empty rooms, the subtle click of a ball rolling across the floor, or the shuffle of feet along the hallway. The laughter and whispers are often playful, but the moments are accompanied by an unmistakable chill, a sensation of being observed that lingers long after the sounds fade. The presence is not overtly threatening, yet it carries an intensity that leaves witnesses both frightened and fascinated. Faculty and maintenance staff have also reported unusual activity in the older dormitories. Custodians cleaning late at night have heard the pitter-patter of small feet in hallways devoid of life, and occasional doors creak open or closed without explanation. Professors who occasionally visit the dorms for meetings or late-night student check-ins have felt a sudden drop in temperature, the sensation of someone brushing past them, or heard faint giggles that seem to echo down the halls. These consistent reports across decades have solidified the idea that the dormitories are not merely old, creaky buildings, but sites of lingering energy, where echoes of the past remain intertwined with the present. Some students have speculated about the origins of the ghostly children. The dormitories date back to the 19th century, and historical records suggest that several families once lived on or near the campus, some of whom endured tragic losses. It is possible that the spirits are the remnants of children who died young or who experienced sorrow in life, their energy tethered to the campus buildings. Others believe that the dormitories themselves, having housed generations of students and countless memories, may act as conduits for residual energy, manifesting as playful yet haunting presences that replay fragments of the past. The encounters with the ghostly children are not always terrifying in the traditional sense. Many students describe a mix of awe and unease, feeling a connection to a time long past and a life that existed before their own. The spirits seem to interact minimally, often appearing briefly and disappearing just as quickly, leaving those who witness them with a haunting curiosity rather than outright fear. For some, the experiences prompt reflection on the history of the campus, the lives that once filled its halls, and the mysteries that continue to linger unseen. Paranormal investigators have occasionally visited Haverford College to document the phenomena. Audio recordings sometimes capture soft giggles, faint whispers, or the shuffle of small feet moving across wooden floors. Thermal cameras detect sudden cold spots where no drafts exist, and photographic attempts occasionally show fleeting shapes or shadows, too indistinct to define but clearly present. While skeptics argue these experiences could be the result of imagination, fatigue, or environmental factors, the consistency of reports across decades and among multiple witnesses lends credibility to the idea of a genuine haunting. The stories of the ghostly children have become part of Haverford College's campus folklore, shared among students as a rite of passage or a whispered warning late at night. Alumni often recount their own encounters, adding layers to the legend and connecting generations of students through a shared experience of the unexplained. The haunting, in many ways, serves as a reminder of the college's long history and the lives that have touched its buildings, leaving invisible marks that persist even in the modern day. Haverford College's oldest dormitories, with their creaking floors, narrow hallways, and silent rooms, are home to more than just current students. The ghostly children who run, laugh, and occasionally sit at the foot of beds are spectral reminders of the past, their presence bridging centuries and reminding all who dwell there that some spirits never truly leave. For students walking the dimly lit halls or staying late in their rooms, the playful yet eerie echoes of these children create encounters that are unforgettable, chilling, and impossible to ignore. The spirits of Haverford's ghostly children continue to watch, run, and laugh in the shadows, ensuring that the legacy of the past is never forgotten, and that the oldest dormitories remain alive with whispers of long-gone lives. And so, we leave the classrooms, the dormitories, and the lecture halls of Pennsylvania behind. But as we close the doors on these haunted schools, the echoes remain: footsteps in the empty corridors, whispers in the libraries, shadows on the stairwells. Pennsylvania's schools remind us that learning doesn't always end with life. Some students, teachers, and even soldiers of the past seem to remain tethered to the places where they once walked, unwilling to let go. Thank you, dear friends, for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed these ghostly tales, make sure to stay close, because there are always more haunted stories waiting just beyond the shadows. Until next time, keep your lights low, your hearts brave, and your minds open to the mysteries that surround us.